Yes,
Move the
last- Yep.
Podium just a little.
I'll move it
Yeah,
again.
yeah, that would be terrific.
And then- I didn't put it out again.
Oh, got everybody here.
Make sure it's the same one.
You can copy it, that will be cheating. I want to have an A plus, thank you very much.
Is Paul ready to go? So we
Yep.
ready? Okay.
Yep, we
wait
have
for
a
that
quorum.
recording announcement.
Yep, yep. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's January 31st, 2024. It is just about 4 o'clock. This is the Finance Committee. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over Local Access Channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And I'm looking at the agenda. And unfortunately, Maura Noonan Perry is not able to join us tonight. She had planned to be here and the schedule was put together with that in mind, but unfortunately she has another issue and so she will not be joining us this evening. We hope to have her come another time. Item number 3, we do not have any minutes this evening. We will most likely have some at the next meeting, so we will proceed to item number 4, the budget review. And I'm going to sort of go, I know it's listed on the agenda, but I'm going to sort of go by the information in our packet here. And the first one is going to be the health and environment. And so if I believe we have an individual here to join us, Hillary. Yeah, yeah.
Director of Health and Environment, I took over for Jane.
Yeah.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi.
So, for the people that are using their budget book, it's on page 130.
So I've never been before you, so I'm not exactly sure how you like to proceed with the budget review.
Well, just a minute.
Okay.
Let's give everybody a chance to get to the page.
Starts on 127.
There we go. There we go. Probably the best thing is to just discuss your plans for fiscal year 25 and the changes that you are considering as far as the cost from current fiscal year.
Yeah, so we provide health and environmental services throughout town. We look after the public health and the wellness of the people as well as the environment. So we do a lot of pond work throughout this budget, and we provide some public health services and nursing services and programming through the VNA. So the biggest change in this budget is the $10,000 under nursing services. And that was new this year because we recognized that we needed to provide more programming to the residents.
Where's
It's on page 131.
It's under the professional and technical.
And you might share just what are those nursing services primarily
Sure.
providing? Is it,
Yeah. So
I got my shot at the Elks Club.
that's not part of it.
No.
So what it is actual direct services that we're going to put into the community, working through with the Council on Aging staff. So we're going to do some stroke programming, we're going to do mobility programming, we're going to do fall risk assessments, a walking program for families. So actual programs that would enhance the health of the residents and help them.
Was the health fair at the library recently something?
So that was funded, that was done through the health department following the health assessment that we put on. We wanted to use that to gauge our responses to the survey to make sure we gathered the right information from the survey. So we actually used that as an opportunity to talk to the folks that came in the door, to ground truth the assessment.
Thanks.
I have a question too, in the same area, the IRA.
Yep.
I have no idea what that stands for, other than I know it's
That's for
not an
the
IRA.
Yep, that's for the landfill monitoring. So we're required to monitor wells surrounding the landfill to make sure that no chemicals are migrating out. So that's a requirement from Mass DEP to continue testing that.
But I have a question about that because you have the actual for fiscal year 23 at 28,000 and the budget is 50. so-
Yeah, so we've reduced some of the sampling and we are allowed to reduce it based on our results. So if we were to get another hit of something, we would then increase the sampling. So it's not really a budget line that we want to cut because we may need it depending on what we find.
And there's a provision in there for.
I'm sorry, Rick?
There's a provision in there for some unknown if we have to
Mm, mm.
ramp back up the testing.
And just FYI, so during the one for dioxane
Oh, yes.
issue, that line item was $250,000 a year.
Mm.
Hillary, just, the other change that probably should speak to is, we've consolidated some of the work, so now we have the conservation agent will be coming in.
Yes.
And don't be remiss about your rental inspection and septic inspections.
So we do all that. So when I came in as Director of Health and Environment, we moved the Conservation Department under that umbrella. So you will notice an increase in salaries and wages. And then we have an admin that came in under this umbrella and a conservation agent.
So how do we make sense if the history doesn't have the actuals? But now we've got budgets that have it. How do we?
Compare.
So I think those numbers would be coming out of your community development budget
Last year.
last year's
I know
and
they would, but how?
It's a
We
written
have to
question.
reconcile
Oh.
all this stuff?
I adjusted the budgets. I don't think I did go back and adjust the actuals. But salaries typically are gonna be budgeted at 100% of what the expected cost of the employee is. We don't budget extra. So the employees listed on page 130 for FY 25. Those employees that were in community development are highlighted and are presented with
Yeah, I see.
prior amounts.
Mhm.
It's pretty much the same there's been a little bit of change in staff, but the same positions, I should say.
Mhm.
Just in a different spot than where they were last year.
Are those different employee categories? Is that why the salaries are different?
So,
Going
as
across.
part of the reorganization, when Hillary came on board, she replaced Jane. But we did also reorganize, the position of an assistant health agent to become the health agent.
Mhm.
And that's because that's our focus on to wastewater and environmental concerns. So Hillary spends a lot of time on that. And the health agent focuses on, I'll let Hillary speak. but-
yeah, the health agent is out there inspecting restaurants, pools, septic systems, doing test holes, essentially doing all of the public health boots on the ground work, short of plan review.
Is that the administrative aid that you're talking, is HSG is, I was thinking that was a housing.
That's a housing inspector.
yeah,
So we
that's what I
also,
thought.
yeah, we also have a part-time housing inspector, Richard.
Mhm.
And he is out essentially running our rental housing program. So he conducts the inspections. All rentals are required to be inspected once every 3 years. They're all on a cycle. So he's out there taking in applications and going out and inspecting.
So basically what I did when we reorganized this position last year is Jane was just health and she was doing wastewater and health. So now Hillary is doing health, wastewater, and conservation supervision of all of those 3 silos that are now together in her department.
I just have a question. There's a house not too far from the library that is an absolute disaster.
Oh.
How do you get something like that taken care of?
Perhaps you could transfer that information to me offline here. And if it's a housing matter, Susan would go out and look at it because she does the inspections under the sanitary code.
Susan Barker is quite familiar with the,
No, that's
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
it just
it's-
drives me crazy.
Sometimes these things move glacially slow, unfortunately. There's a lot of letter writing and waiting for correspondence and waiting for compliance. We try not to be heavy-handed in enforcement because we really want people to comply because they understand what is not in compliance. I am not familiar with that situation, but I can certainly find out. about it.
Well, it's, I'm sure everybody in town knows about it. It's not unknown.
They keep me in the dark.
Are there any questions from the Zoomer folks?
I have a question, Mary.
Roy?
Yeah, Hillary, what do you see as your two major challenges in the coming year?
Wastewater. And I think what I'm currently seeing is we're having a procedural issue on permit review. So those are sort of top for me. While my personal interest lies more with public health, getting public health services out into the environment. That would be a close third in line here, but wastewater would be one. Number two is sort of understanding our permitting procedure and process and figuring out how to make that more effective for the residents of Eastham. Because I think we're struggling there right now.
And what do you want to see happen in the wastewater area?
Well, so we're going to be moving into design and permitting of collection and treatment. We're
Right.
working on a number of different stormwater projects. We have a couple of salt marsh projects, and we're working on a permeable reactive barrier project. So really, we're trying to get in line for some funding that will be available to put in mitigation strategies that will improve our water bodies. So
Right now, we have 5 USDA grants going for stormwater. So, we're pulling together a team for that, which will include Shayna. But yeah, there's a lot of work to do in this area.
And how's the layer cake doing?
The
The
layer
innovative septic cheap
The-
method.
the layer cake is not functioning as well as we had hoped. So we're not going to employ layer cakes in the future. We did have that pilot project in the ground and we've been monitoring it. And actually, if anyone's interested at our next Board of Health meeting, the county's going to come and give an overview of it. So it'll be a good opportunity to learn about it, although we're not going to continue to put them in the ground.
And is that,
This was the wood chip.
I
Yeah.
know, is it just our layer cake?
So,
installation, or is it
it's
a problem with the
interesting.
technology?
Well, the technology isn't working across the board. It works for for a certain period of time. In the winter, it kind of snoozes and
Like those electric batteries.
yeah, so they're constantly tweaking it to try and figure out if they can get it to work better. But our situation is kind of interesting because we have it in a property that has a lot of high intensity use. And so I think when the house is full, it works. And then when the population dwindles, but it's been okay. It's not great. It's not the solution we were hoping for, I think, which has been kind of disappointing over time because it was low tech, low cost, but
Seemed like a silver bullet.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think we were all
Permeable
hopeful.
reactive barriers are working pretty good.
Yeah, the PRB is
Yeah.
working excellently.
Yeah. Paul?
Yeah, thank you. Hillary, if you can go back to the beginning about the survey, as a result of the survey, what, if anything, changed? What surprised you?
Yeah.
What needs are you hearing from the people who you're interacting with?
Yeah, so we did this public health survey, public health assessment. And what we found is that the chief complaint out here is access to healthcare and access to medical providers for all kinds of specialty items like mammograms and colonoscopies and all of that. So it's really a hindrance to health and wellness if you can't access a doctor easily, regularly, and with frequency. So we wanted to sort of talk to the population at the health fair and just make sure that was true. And what we saw was that most of the people that came to the health fair wanted to go see the Barnstable County nurses and get their blood glucose tested, their blood pressure and their bone density. So, so I think, you know, that showed me that if we can provide these services, people are going to actually go and utilize them. So that was interesting to see. There's also a food insecurity issue that we're acutely aware of in our community that, you know, many other departments and agencies are also working on. But, you know, part of good health is having access to fresh fruits and vegetables and healthy dining options. So that's another thing that we observed. And then loneliness and depression would be, you know, right up there in the top 3, if you're asking what the top 3 issues that we saw were. And, you know, we know that there's a lot of programming in Eastham, so it's really understanding where the programming is, what people like to go to, and how to funnel them to more opportunities like that. So we can really have an impact on folks' mental health, because mental health is one of the most serious issues we're facing today.
Thank
Do
you.
we need to do a better job of putting some sort of packet or information out so people?
So we are working on that. We currently partner with the rest of our towns on the Outer Cape, and in the winters, we call it Winter Wednesdays, where there's programming with free transportation. There's programming in Provincetown, Truro, Wellfleet, and Eastham. It's all free. It gets people together in a room where you can at least socialize while you're there. You can learn something, have some fun. There are also online opportunities for that. So, I mean, I think we're trying to do the best we can as we continue to learn about what our residents' needs are.
No, I agree with you. I think loneliness is an issue. I
Yeah.
know many of my friends live alone.
Yeah. Right.
And they're
So it's
elderly.
trying to, you know, how do we communicate to them that these offerings are available? I'm guessing they're not on the social media. They might
Right.
not go to the website. So that's another area that I'm thinking a lot about, is how we communicate to people,
Mhm.
because we can communicate to the newspaper. Like, there's so many avenues of communication, and I'm just not sure. And I've struggled with this even when I was in Wellfleet. How do we get the word out to the people we're really trying to
Mhm.
reach? And I don't think we do a good job about it. After I held the health fair, you know, I kind of reflected and thought, like, okay, so we held it from 12 to 4, but we're missing people that are working. We're missing families. We're missing, you know, people that probably didn't know about it or couldn't get there.
That's an issue, is the
Is the
transportation.
transportation. So transportation, I was just working on our public health objectives for the strategic plan, and transportation is a piece of
Mhm,
that.
mhm.
And I think it's also working within our governmental structure, because we know, like, the COA has a van. So
Yeah.
like, maybe we could have done some advertising, come get on the van and come to the health fair, or, you know, Dorothy
Yeah.
also holds health fairs at the COA. So I think it's more intricate communication internally,
Mhm.
but I'm still trying to figure out Eastham before I go and step on anyone's toes, or, you know,
Mhm.
barge into something where I have no business being. So I'm trying to learn as I go and be
Mhm,
delicate.
mhm. No, I just want to say that I think transportation is a big issue, especially
huge.
with some of the folks that I know that don't drive.
Yeah.
Or they have issues that they can't drive. And
Absolutely.
I know that I would like to do something with the library and the Council on Aging on that front.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm committed to working with my colleagues, obviously.
yeah. Thank you.
One more question.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, Hillary, thanks for coming tonight. Hey, just a question for you. You know, in the budget process, obviously you had to prioritize, and you talked about what your 3 challenges were relative to wastewater, and you mentioned the nursing. You know, if you had a few more bucks, what fell just below the line that you'd like to do that maybe this budget doesn't allow you to do?
So there's a couple things that aren't in this budget, only because I wanted to learn about what the budget was before I put anything into it. Couple things that are of interest to me are a cyanobacteria sampling program with APCC. That comes at a cost. They've been kind enough to do it for free. So we're going to continue to have conversations with them, but knowing that their goodness is going to wear out pretty soon here. I have some pond maintenance work that I want to do that we're gonna find money for because our ponds are, really important to our town and we need to make sure they continue to remain healthy. I'd like to put some money into regional programming because I think that's useful to partner with our region and offer, whether it's more social groups or educational forums. And I don't know if you all know, but we are using an ARPA grant to provide a nurse and a mental health clinician in our 4 communities from here to Provincetown. And so looking to the future, I think what we're going to find is there's a need for us to have that once this grant runs out, whether we have it alone or we share it with our neighbors. That's something that we're going to have to look at going forward.
When does the current grant expire?
We have 18 months from,
June of 2025.
June 25, so
yeah,
a little over a year and a half,
Yeah.
a little under a year and a half.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have a question on the opioid issue.
Yeah, sure.
I know we're regionalizing with that as well. Provincetown,
Yeah.
Truro, Wellfleet, and Eastham. How is that going?
So it's going well. We just only rolled out a plan within the past 2 months. We have a Nalox box with Narcan stocked. It's at the police station, so residents can go in and have access to that if they need it. At the health fair, we had the AIDS support group there giving trainings on how to use Narcan. We're having 2 additional trainings in February, one at 2:30 on February 29th, right before the Board of Health meeting. And then we're going to have another one, I can't remember the day, at the library in the evening, so we can get sort of that evening group. They're willing to come out and do whatever. They're also providing a mobile van, which we're looking for locations to station it so folks can go in and get fentanyl test strips and learn how to use Narcan, get Narcan. There's a Sharps exchange program with that, so that will be in our community and the others on the Outer Cape, so residents can stop into the van whenever it's convenient to them. We have programming out there. We currently are running a 12-step recovery yoga program that started, I think, last week and is gaining traction. We have Wellstrong Gym that comes and does other programming for adults with wellness and recovery. We have for the youth, we have another sort of exercise and recovery program. And then we have Pam providing an art class, so recovery and art for the youth. And in addition to that, we've put money to Outer Cape Health for their substance use abuse program, so they can provide acupuncture and some services that aren't covered by health insurance. And all of this programming is free to the residents that want to use it. So
Where are you holding most of those?
So
classes?
there's different things in each town,
Mhm.
and it's all linked on the Outer Cape Community Solutions website, which we're going to be linking shortly to our website. We just had that conversation. Again, I'm not sure if we're, do people get that information? Does everyone go online? I don't know enough about how to communicate here yet well, but it should be advertised. And from what I understand, most people that are going to utilize the services will find out about this.
Are there any other questions from the Rick?
I'll ask the other side of Tom's question. If your budget was squeezed, what's the first place you would look to
Save money?
save money?
Gosh, I don't know. That's a hard question.
It's certainly harder than.
It's a hard question. It's a hard question when there's so much that I want to do and I feel like we're already squeezed. I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that appropriately.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm sorry.
Let me ask you one last question.
Yeah.
Change it a little bit. I know you haven't been here, you're getting your
Yes.
legs and the organization together and it sounds like you got a good handle on things coming out of the gate. So good for you. One of the things is how many people do you have in the department? Just roughly
Maybe 6.
6. Okay. So there's pretty good amount of money under like professional training and, $4,800. It's a lot based on what we spent in the past. And you don't have to give me specifics right now, but investing in our people are important in order to keep them around here. So is this something you're looking into to make sure that we utilize the funds that we're setting aside for this?
Yeah, and I don't want to get into like a big discussion here, but recently the state came down with this public health excellence program. And under that program is a requirement for all kinds of training. So whereas I thought I was perfectly well trained, I've been in the field for 20 years, I'm a registered sanitarian, blah, 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 blah. And I went to take a food inspector course. I was like, oh, I haven't done this in a while. This will be good. And along with that food inspector course were 40 contact hours of training that I needed in order to get the certificate for the food inspector training. And I was like, that's wild. Like, that's more continuing education than I ever needed to maintain a registered sanitarian license or a soil evaluator or a system inspector. Like, what are they thinking? So while I want to say, yeah, we're going to be able to reduce that, I'm not sure that's reasonable when the state is putting requirements on us that are more and more and more. So that being said, we are getting money through a public health excellence grant that can pay for some training.
Yeah.
And we are enrolled in an FDA retail food safety program that will bring more money.
Yep.
But I'd be hesitant to squeeze anywhere until I had a solid understanding of.
Please don't misunderstand my
Yeah,
question.
no, no.
It wasn't to cut it. It was to make sure we put a plan in
Yeah.
place to use it.
Absolutely.
You know what I
And
mean?
the other thing, just so you know, is our Mass Health Officers Conference was held in Springfield a number of years ago, and then they moved it to Falmouth. So when they moved it to Falmouth, we cut out the lodging part of that because we didn't have to stay anywhere.
Yeah.
But this year we're going back to Springfield, so.
Well, and it seems like
Can't
more
win.
and more of these certifications are, as you said, coming back with continuing education.
Yeah.
credits. Not just obtaining the initial certificate,
But to
but then keeping. you know,
Yeah, and right now the state is trying to get everyone in the Commonwealth on a level playing field, so they're setting in new requirements that like we may have taken 20 years ago, but I can't produce a certificate from something I took 20 years ago. And, I called and inquired and they said, well, go online and print it. I was like, there was no online then. I sat in a room in the Dennis police station, like there was no online.
Just
So,
making these investments in the staff.
Yeah.
Say that we care about the staff.
Yeah.
Looking at them long term,
mhm,
and we all know what a challenge it is to hire. around
yes,
here.
no,
So
yeah,
This is an easy investment to
absolutely.
make people feel, one, that we're planning for them and.
You want to feel like you have the most recent available knowledge on these subjects because things do change over time as well.
Thank you.
So just a couple of things, if I may, Mary. I think, health and conservation is a little bit different than some of our departments because there is required licensure in these departments that, Hillary and her staff are going to have to keep up with, which is pretty significant. We need an RS. We have to have a registered sanitarian, and that training is not available to everyone, and you're not eligible to sit for the test unless you have specific education. So that's one we have to have, and hopefully we'll have 2 RSs in that department. We're crossing our fingers. And then the second thing, I have to give Hillary credit and all the health and conservation agents for the 4 towns, because they together have come up with more regional options in the past 5 years, and they've been working on it for maybe 10 years. But it's starting to bear fruit, and it's a very, very good precedent, and both of those sides of the table have worked very hard. And that's why I wanted them combined into one of the many reasons.
And I'm all for regionalization.
I know, that's why I mentioned it.
I'm a big supporter of it also.
Oh. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much for coming today.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yep. We will go on to the next item on the book here. And that is the Council on Aging. So if Dorothy'd like to come up and join us. The Council on Aging is page 141. Let me see.
Stand 134.
one forty-one, 142,
Oh, Council on Aging's mixed in with community services.
140.
So the community services total is on
134.
134, but COA salaries is 137.
141,
COA expense is 142,
right, yeah.
141 to
141 to 142. And the salaries are 137.
Everybody ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dorothy Burt, the Director at the Council on Aging. So I'll just kind of start off to piggyback off of what Hillary discussed with the loneliness, food insecurity, and the medical, well, transportation in general. Those are some key items that, you know, the COA does address by providing medical transportation. As you've all heard, we've got a grant that we're going to start some new hybrid programming that's really to reach those that are socially isolated and or getting more people out to the senior center as well. In regards to the line items, the increases. So one of the increases was for our robust newsletter. I don't know if everybody's seen it, but the reason that price went up is because we have so many programs, we actually had to increase the number of pages of the newsletter. So that's what that line item is. And then the other big one is for circling back to the food insecurity. We're doing meals, various food programs, meal delivery, as well as groceries, so on and so forth. So the idea is to increase that as well as provide more fresh vegetables, fruits, those types of items. And with the cost of goods now, everything's just increased. So those are kind of the two major ones. Last year, we provided over 4,000 meals to over 105 seniors. And that doubled as compared to the previous fiscal year, which was just over 2,000 meals.
Yeah.
So we are doing more. We're hoping to grow it more and expand it more. And I think there's definitely a need for it.
What do you think caused the increase like from 2 to 4?
Well, I think part of it is the economy. I think things have gone up. I think we're also getting more well-known in the community. I think there's a lot more people utilizing our services. Let's see, in fiscal year 23, we served, I think it was about over 15,000 people, 23 and 24, about over 20,000. So we're seeing more, that's duplicated so that, you know, multiple people coming. Did you have a question, Jackie?
No, it's not possible, Dorothy.
What's that?
We
Well,
only
it's a
have
number of
5,800 people.
Well, it's not the number of times.
Okay.
No. It's not, like I said, it's duplicated. It's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
number of times and occurrences. I'm sorry, it's not the people,
Mm.
correct?
Mm.
So people wise, it was about 1,400 of our population. So
I have a question on the building maintenance. You've
Yeah.
got 650 for a prior year and then coming up 5,000. And you have a comment down below about monies that you had past received from the Friend.
Right.
What's that?
So the Friends have been covering the landscaping costs at the Council on Aging building. So that's been happening for quite a few years now. So the board feels that the town, since it is a town property, should be maintaining the landscaping there. So thank you for mentioning that.
And I have another question. And I should know the answer to this. Is there an elevator in your building?
So yeah, there is an elevator. It's quite ancient. It's more of like a dumbwaiter, kind of a
Oh.
dolly lift. So it's pretty antiquated. So that definitely should be upgraded. I don't know if anybody's ever ridden in it.
No, I've never been in
Um,
it.
It's time. It's well past time for an upgrade for that.
Because I'm thinking that I was there the other day, actually yesterday.
Yeah.
And the building, but there's somebody fixing this entryway
Mhm.
where people go in with wheelchairs and
Yes.
their walkers and so forth. And so Is there a way for people to go in at the lower level and use the elevator?
There is, yeah, yep. So that's part of it to ask for more signage, so people can be directed. But if you enter on the ground level, that there is an elevator that you can ride up.
I'm just wondering whether people even know about it.
I don't think it's well marked.
No.
It really isn't. So that's again another thing. If we had some more signage and, you know, kind of pointing people in the right direction, but mostly word of mouth.
Because people that have those issues park
And
just out in that section right outside the entrance, the side entrance. there,
right,
The
yeah,
west entrance, and people are trying, if you're a passenger, there's no way for you to get out. If you're being driven, if you've got a wheelchair or a walker, you've got to get out into the parking, into the actual driveway.
right. Yeah, our
So-
accessibility
Terrible sight.
is really
terrible.
difficult. It's really hard. It really is. The way you drop off people, there's no really safe place to do it. And I think you're right. You know, even downstairs riding the elevator, people aren't aware of it. So I think there's a lot of issues in that regard at the senior
what can
center.
be
And
done
this is-
about this?
Mary, I think this is the crux of the, discussion we've been having for years. I mean, since Sheila was here about should we try and rebuild this building that has a very, very tricky site,
Right.
not enough
Oh, yeah.
space on the site and,
Mhm.
and not very accessible, or do we try and move the COA somewhere else? So
Right.
that's the crux.
Right.
So, I mean, we're keeping up with some repairs and stuff, and
Mhm.
it's in pretty good shape.
It is in
but
pretty good
it's
shape. I
not-
think,
We're
yeah.
not investing money into it.
Yeah.
I think there's some additional safety things that could happen. You know, that was part of the ramp being fixed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of frost heaves in the parking lot and uneven surfaces. The sidewalk needs some repair. We need better lighting in the parking lot. So there are some things I think that can be addressed, immediately because, whether we're moving or not, we're still there now. We need to think about the
Mhm. Yeah.
safety of our seniors, right? Or anyone using the building. We've had some other people using it in the evening as well. So those are the things I've talked to DPW about. So we are working towards some solutions. And even as simple as the signage, as I mentioned, just directing people,
Yeah,
right?
because I don't think the people that I'm thinking of even
Mhm.
know that they can go down below.
Yeah. So maybe that's something I can feature in the next newsletter article.
Do you want them to take the elevator?
Well, I mean, it's an option, it's it is a little, they can at least check it out, they can see
Yeah.
if they want to ride the elevator.
If they get in it, will they get to the top floor?
They will, eventually,
Not far to
eventually.
go. I mean, it's not like a.
Yeah.
story.
But the issue is that parking, there's only 3 spots there. So, rather than having somebody walk down the hill,
Oh, no, you don't want that.
yeah, it is probably a better solution. It's not the best solution, but it is a solution. So, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I have another question. I know
Sure.
UMass did a study
Yes.
for you.
Mhm.
What were the things that might be in that study that you feel should be done now or not done?
So transportation, as we talked about, is a
Mhm.
big issue. It's part of our strategic plan. We're working towards expanding our transportation program, which includes getting some software. We're actually going to be piloting software through My Senior Center, and it's going to help us organize the rides better. I'd like also to work towards getting an actual transportation coordinator to facilitate rides. We do the medical transportation. We also offer rides to voting, anything anyone really needs within reason to get to a program or to the library or whatever it might be. We're always willing to work and partner. We work with the rec department, they borrow our vans for kids, so across the board, I think it is an issue. And I'd like to see it expand and get supported.
Do you have trouble finding drivers?
Sometimes, yes. It's more, it doesn't pay a lot. It's about $20 an hour. It's funded through our formula grant. And it's a part-time on-call position. And so most of our folks are usually retired. It's more of a volunteer, you get a little pocket money, but they enjoy it. It's a win-win for both parties. So, but we are always sort of actively looking since it's part-time on call. It's really based on availability.
It's a really busy service for
Mhm.
Dorothy and her staff, and they do a great job managing it with the resources that they
Mhm.
have. I have to say, you do not turn away many people.
No, yeah.
So it's quite amazing. And, I'm very critical of these types of services because I've run them in the past
Okay.
and she does a great job.
Council on Aging. Yeah.
I have one question.
Yeah.
You talk on professional and technical, you talk about programs, fee-based programs, on the social.
Yeah,
et
yeah.
cetera. Can you just talk a little bit about, is that expanding the programs? Have your costs gone up or?
Yeah, so the Friends actually supplement most of our programs at the COA. So a lot of them are no cost, but we'd like to start expanding and possibly charging some for some of these programs. One of the things that was in that UMass study was the LGBTQT++ community and offering some programs there. So we've actually started a committee and we've started just slowly, we're kind of figuring out what that's going to look like. So it is an expansion of programs and sort of reaching more of the population in the community.
What do you have for transportation? I know, as I say, I was there yesterday and you've got sort of a white bus there, but I got other
So
vans.
the Cape Cod Transit Authority, we work with them and we are able to lease vehicles at no cost to us except for maintenance and gas and insurance, of course. So we've got a 14-passenger, 2 minivans, and then the town also provides I think we have 3 Toyota Sienna minivans. So the trick is, as you all know, I mean, Hillary touched upon this, it's access, right? It's access to medical facilities, doctors. Most of our appointments are in Hyannis. So we try to streamline it and, partner and, maybe put 2 people on a van, but the reality is it's very difficult to do. It is. But we're hoping maybe this new software we're going to pilot might be able to be strategic, some artificial intelligence might help us, right?
Figure out a better
right.
schedule.
Right. But it's very difficult to sort of coordinate all of that. And I don't know, we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's impossible to coordinate it.
Mhm.
It's
But there-
with our managed care system.
Mhm.
And that's why I think being smart and downsizing the vehicles, or
Mhm.
we've talked about moving to electric vehicles
Right.
for the COA transfer. That's where we need to go
Right.
because we're never going to get 10 people
Right.
going to Hyannis
Right.
at the same time.
Unless it's Trader
Right.
Joe's.
Sure.
Yeah, we do. We
No, but
we
seriously,
go to
it's
Trader
like
Joe's.
Yeah,
We
you
do.
sign up
We
for
go.
Medical.
Yeah,
It would
it's
be
it's-
impossible.
I couldn't see it working on a local level, possibly, Outer Cape Health or possibly, but those specialty doctors, I mean, you're booking 6
In a-
months to a
in
year
advance.
out. So trying to coordinate, I thought, could we work with the doctor's office? It's just not possible. So I think we do a good job for, what we're given. I think we can probably be more strategic with this new system, I'm hoping. And if we had somebody actually running the transportation program, somebody
Mhm.
dedicated
Mhm.
to it, I think that we can do more and I think we can serve more.
When do you expect to get the software?
I actually have a meeting at the end of this month with the people from my senior center. I'm not sure of the timing. I imagine fairly soon in the next few months, I would think.
I don't think it's going to get any better. What I'm saying is that the number or the age of the people in town here are getting older and older. More and more people are getting older and older.
Yeah,
Are you getting
absolutely.
younger?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about the silver tsunami for forever, right? We've been talking about the baby boomer population And, it's absolutely true. They're here and, we're aging with a bigger population now, and there's going to be more valued services needed.
Yeah.
And that's part of our programming, doing some more hybrid and fun, different types of programs is bringing everybody in so they can know about our services. I mean, Hillary talked about communication, right? It's getting to be known in the community for what we are doing now and what you're going to need in the future. And that's, so it's building that comfort level. And that's kind of what we try to do now. And, that social piece, that isolation, we want to bring people out. We want to bring them together. That's also a big part of our strategic plan.
Yeah, I'd like to work with your vans and I think we can use them for the library programs.
Yeah, we've done a couple things previously getting, offering transportation. And I think a lot of it is publicity. I think it's communicating and people really knowing that this service exists. We bring people to the grocery store. We go to Trader Joe's. They have a blast. There's a shopping van on Friday. They call it the party bus. And it's this cohort of people that all met through the shopping van and they have a good time. So it's a fun experience. It's getting people out. They may just go for the ride, honestly, just for the social piece. So that's a big part of what we do.
Yeah, people need to be out to talk to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But just coming back to the fee-based program,
Yeah.
just tell me, is that the cost to develop the program? When you say fee-based, do these programs carry themselves once they're in place? And
That's
when you say fee-based,
That's the goal. That's Jackie's goal.
no, that's right. I'm just trying to understand it. You know,
I-
I mean, you can
I-
develop a program too to begin with. I
We
understand
do.
that.
You're welcome. Yes. So I think the big thing is there's two sides of this coin. It's looking at who our population is. Who are we serving? Mainly, you're on a fixed income, right? Most of our population is. So, is that going to deter somebody from coming out and, being social and not being isolated at home? And then there's, self-sustaining a program, right? So if you're going to pay, it's just going to revolve our revolving account, right? And it should pay for itself. As I mentioned, the Friends have taken up most of the cost for these programs because they think it's a value. Fitness, all our fitness classes are free to Eastham residents. With the exception of a couple of special series, like our Tai Chi series, we charge, $5 a class or something like that, which the town covers that. And then it's paid through the fee. So that kind of covers itself. But I think it's expanding. It's looking at these programs as in a bigger picture and possibly charging. But I feel it's a case by case scenario basis because I want to see, let's pilot something. Maybe it's a donation based and then see how it goes. But I never want to deter anybody from coming out. The Friends do offer scholarship programs. So if somebody can't, afford to pay $5 for a meal, we just kind of waive that in the
Understand.
Friends.
How much
yeah.
does Friends add over and above this,
So,
roughly?
I was
Yeah.
going to ask the same question.
they probably, I'd say ballpark 80,000 And
least
at least
Annually?
annually. Yeah.
So you're asking for 3 to 5 or whatever the number is here,
Yeah.
and you're leveraging that with
Right.
Friends to an 85 million.
Exactly.
Yeah.
85,000.
Yeah, I think-
Yeah, so they're very generous and they're very committed to our community here. And they want people out being healthy, socializing, exercising, getting food, all of these valuable programs that we're running.
Thank you.
One of
You're
the
welcome.
useful exercises for the next year's season would be working with Dorothy and Melanie at the library. Both have friends
Friends
groups that
groups.
contribute substantially to their operations and their programming. And so this isn't a true representation. And that's why same with Melanie's budget, you'll see Jackie and I supported the increase in the program delivery type costs because historically the Friends have bared a substantial burden related to that. So when you see $5,000 their programming doesn't cost $5,000. That's just the taxpayer support of programming in general. So having a little, you know, a fuller picture of what all that represents between the town funded piece, the Friends funded piece, the revolving account, and then the separate donation account, and
Yeah.
pulling all that together would give us a better picture.
Well,
of
that's, I
what
mean,
that
that's a great story to tell, you know what I mean? 'Cause
Exactly.
If I had known that, we wouldn't even talk about it, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
It's great for everyone else to know that those kind of resources in addition to going after the grants and things like that.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I am because we're very supported in our community and, you know, all these program ideas that we come up with and facilitate, they're always supported, which is great. And I think we're reaching a lot of our members in our community here. So,
Is the majority of the 80,000 used for programs?
yeah, yeah. You know, my gosh, our HIT class is our most popular, the high intensity.
Mm.
I'm afraid of it. I won't, you know, they really do a good job there. But that's probably our biggest one. And let me see, I think last year fitness duplicated, not number of people, I apologize. There was over 6,000 classes offered last year, or individuals that came to the classes multiple times. And it served 300 people. So not, you know, huge versus our population, but we are reaching and we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And I think the conversation that I continue to have with Dorothy is when the Friends, you know, there are models that work that subsidize programming for people who can't afford to pay, but also collect money for fees so that we can sustain these programs. And the recreation program, for instance, uses that model. So all the other COAs really, they use that model. So our COA is very different in that the Friends have made this commitment and they want to continue to make it. If they decided to stop making it, we would not want to take all of that $80,000 and put it in the budget. We would want to figure out a way to, you know,
Sustain it.
be as self-sustaining as
Yeah.
possible, or at least cover a certain percentage of those services.
You're welcome.
Kind of like the Simon Legree, but you know.
Yeah, we have this conversation a lot. But it's working for now. And, you know, to your point, at some point, if it doesn't, you know, we do have to look at still serving our members in the best way possible. So they're getting what they need.
Any other, Rick?
Can't help making my normal. I mean, there's a lot of funding sources that help all the programs in town. But we gotta keep our eye at the end of the day, what the tax rate is, especially since we have so many fixed income
Right.
people. And we gotta juggle the balls and make trade-offs. You know, the fact that the non-salaried portion of this, my calculation's going up 39%. This may be where we wanna spend that kind of increase. But we can't spend that kind of increase
Across the board.
everywhere. So I think we have to keep in mind, when we see these numbers, these are great programs, it's still 39%. That's just my speech.
I'll rebuttal with most of the taxpayers are using these services. So, well,
I don't know if you can go that far.
well, a lot of our taxpayers are in this population, I guess is what I'm saying. So I hope it's supported.
Anybody else?
Mary, may I ask a question?
Yeah, Roy?
Yes. Dorothy, what do you see as your department's biggest challenge in the coming fiscal year?
The elevator.
The elevator, right? Yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
Somebody getting stuck in the elevator.
I think it's the transportation piece. I really do. I think that's the biggest issue across the board for most of our population.
Yeah.
And I think it's trying to expand that and fulfill every ride we are limited in what we can provide now. Thank you, Jackie, for the compliment. We don't deny a lot of people, but I'm wondering how many people are not calling, right? And there's a lot more with the aging population that's going to be happening, especially with the medical rides. So I think that's going to be the greatest challenge. And I would like to see that expand because we need to expand it. I don't think we're going to have a choice.
How old are the vans that you have?
Let's
You have
see.
something in the budget here to
Yeah, they
replace?
Yeah,
circulate
Rich-
regularly, Mary.
Yeah, Rich has built in based on age and mileage
Yeah,
to
yeah.
automatically kind of update.
Yeah.
So it's
Page
so I think we're okay there. And then the Transit Authority. We're also partnering with the Transit Authority a little bit more. We're trying to get ridership up to see if people can utilize public transportation as well. So we did partnered with the library on
Yeah, we
how
had
to
a
ride.
had a
Yeah,
program.
exactly. So we're gonna do that again in April.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna come out to the senior center and they're gonna drive people around. And we're actually, in our Getting to Know You this coming newsletter, we're featuring one of the workers from the CCRTA who lives in Eastham. So the idea is for people to get to know the drivers, the CCRTA, in hopes that they might utilize that a little bit more as well. I know that's hard for medical transportation because of the timing, but we're working towards that. And I know through Outer Cape Community Solutions, there's a regional committee that's working on it as well. So this is across the board. I mean, everybody knows this is an issue. So I don't think we're unique in looking at this program and expanding it, but there's a lot of different facets to it, I think.
Page 93 of the capital budget book has their vehicle inventory. They have a 2010 Sienna van. That's what's up for replacement this year.
Yeah.
They have sufficient funds after this year's budget and that streamlined annual recurring funding source to replace this van. And then the next up would be, all things being equal, the 2015 van in a couple of years. And then finally, they have a newer 2020 van.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Dorothy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Hey, Rich, just a separate question. I look at things like cell phones, annual licenses. Is that just catch up on the process of the budgeting, that are here that weren't in previous years? So obviously those things are things people need, you know what I mean? You got to renew your licenses, but they weren't in the previous budgets. That's part of the jump we're seeing in this year's because they weren't in the previous years.
How are they not in the?
Just small.
Did we put them in?
Did you buy all the cell phones for the whole town, for instance, in one pot and then dole them out to the departments or? Do they buy them
But
separately?
what are you talking about? No, I'm not.
It's 534, yeah, it's page 141.
So those things have been budgeted for, just when we present the actual, we put all the actuals are out of one account, so I don't
Oh.
break down the actuals, but those things are provided for each year. So
Yeah.
anytime they use music in their programming, they have to pay a licensing fee.
Yeah, I agree. They should, but there should be a budget in there for last year too, right? If we.
There is, isn't there?
Yeah, the cell
missing?
phones are for there isn't. It looks like there isn't.
See, that's
but
part of the
Oh,
difference
so-
between the years, you know what I'm saying? We just playing catch up in our budget planning process, because
No,
I know
they've
this is
had-
kind of-
they've had, the drivers have had cell phones because, it's.
yeah, I'm
makes
just talking about the
sense.
budget planning. You
Yeah,
know
yeah.
what I mean?
That's a good, let me double
I
check to
don't know
see
why it's not in there.
something went wrong in there.
All right, no need to waste on it, just to. In fact,
I'd like to
I'm
know.
looking at some of the differences, like, Rick was pointing out, you know what I mean? Some of these things weren't budgeted before. We're getting better at budgeting year to year. So we're catching some of these things that might have been falling through the
No,
cracks.
it's an odd one, because I feel like that's been in the budget, so I think that might be an error. What is new though is the 1,200 below that, that's a new licensing fee for that software,
Okay.
so it might have been an error adding that line in, I might have messed
I
up.
thought we talked on Infinium last year about cell phones, so, yeah.
And before we move on, if I would answer the question that Dorothy answered in terms of transportation a little bit more broadly and tell you that even though she has, showing 5 staff, she's limited now by staffing and by space. And the hybrid technology is going to be great because it'll take away some of that, the the space issues because you can, do more with less and get out to people's homes. So that's great. But I think there is a lack of professional staff in that department to face the needs of elders in the future. We should have a social worker, we should have a nurse, we should have some more licensed staff that can deal with certain things, or at least have them be part-time there or whatever. She's looking to hire a program coordinator to run the hybrid program under the grant. We'll probably want to continue that with town funds. And we need some transportation assistance. So I think you're going to see requests for staffing coming in for the COA.
Thank you, Jackie. We are now on to the library. And we'll welcome Melanie.
Poor Christine is last.
We have Melanie McKenzie here today. She is the director of the library, and the salaries are on page 138, and the expenses are on page 143 and 144.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having me. As Mary said, I'm Melanie McKenzie, the director at the library. I recognize many of you because you're library users, so I feel like you understand a lot of what the library provides. But we, of course, provide collections and programs to support the education and entertainment needs of our community members. Our building provides public space for public meetings, library programs, and open forums. So we do a lot to meet the full needs of our community members from birth, all the way through their entire life. So our budget here, just kind of giving you a little bit of an overview. We definitely have a significant increase in our ask from last year. One of our big goals that we're working towards is to kind of increase the sense of the library as a place. In Library Land, we talk about libraries as a third space, and what that means is it's not work or home or school, and that means that it's a place that you don't have to believe anything or pay anything to be there. And it's really important to, the core needs of many communities. As my colleagues have been talking about, we are really facing a lot of current issues with food and housing insecurity. We have mental health issues that a lot of our residents are facing, and having an open space like a library where people can just be to enjoy the collections, to enjoy the programs, or even to just sit by the fireplace is really important to our community. So what we have been doing for this upcoming budget is a couple of big asks. I wanted to start with the salaries beyond the kind of general increase for our full-time and regular part-time staff members. We've also asked for a significant increase for our part-time temporary salaries. Previously, the trustees have funded additional salary needs for part-timers as those come up, and we need to ask additional folks to come in to help with programs and things like that. What we were able to do this past year and what we're looking to continue to do, we opened for 4 hours on Mondays, and that's been really successful for us. And we want to continue that and maybe even expand those hours a little bit more. We've been able to offer additional programs. It's been really great to have an additional day open for families, for kids who aren't in school yet. Parents are able to bring their kids in and do some reading with them and things like that. And our staff have also offered some Monday matinee movie programs, which has been really great for our older population. So we're just looking for something to do in the afternoons. So that increase in staffing is helping us out with increasing our hours and increasing our program offerings. If you move on to our operating budget and the services that we provide, we had a pretty significant increase for our repair and maintenance line. The library building is just a bit different than some of the other town buildings, and we were looking to kind of really have some really direct control over some of the components to our building that are different from the other town departments. We have a lot of windows as compared to the other town buildings, and high gutters that require maintenance beyond some of the other buildings. So we asked for that increase to be added to our budget line directly so that we could kind of manage that maintenance specifically. You'll also see listed out some of the other annual maintenance fees there. One of the second largest line in our operating budget is the professional and technical line, which includes our different software to provide library services. The biggest line there is the CLAM software. That's our integrated library system, and that's the software that we use to manage our collections and our patron records, and all things like that. So that is that major line there. We also have public computer management software that we use to help protect the privacy of our patrons. This allows patrons to have sort of complete privacy when browsing the internet on our computers. When they're finished with their session, it kind of wipes everything and helps protect their personal data. We had initially purchased that with a 5-year agreement, and that was only available to us upon the initial purchase. Now they've moved to an annual contract. And so that is why you're seeing that occur in here for the first time as compared to last year. We also use reservation software and calendar software to promote our public programs and allow public reservation of our library meeting rooms. There's a lot of kind of nuance control in there, but that is that reservation software line that you're seeing there. It also allows us to do a supplementary component to the library website, which allows a lot of customability and allows us to promote a lot of good information on the site really easily. So that's kind of that. The communications line is really quite the same. The other major increase, the largest line from our operating budget, is our books and other circulating materials. We call that the unclassified budget line. And this is materials that go directly to the public that they can use free of charge. So this is that amount that we spend does need to increase each year as required by the state. Previously, the Friends of the Library have supplemented between 15 to 20% of that line of the budget. And what we're working to do, as Rich mentioned before, is work that into be a cost that is covered by the town. So now with this increase that we're asking for this upcoming year, instead of the town only covering about 80%, they're covering, I think it adds up to be about 92% of what we're required to spend by the state for that. So the Friends are not obligated to cover all that. Did you have a question?
Can you tell me more about the state requiring you to spend this money?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Describe
Yeah.
why they do it and how they.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of different components here. Every year, because we're a municipal department, the town gives us an operating budget. And each year we're required to increase the amount in our operating budget by 2.5% from the last year. Now, within that operating budget, that lump sum amount, we're required to spend what adds up to 19% of that amount on circulating materials for the public. We're not required for that 19% to come directly from the town. It can come from other sources, but it should largely come from the town. That's how the state sees that it should be funded, but they're okay with other organizations kind of supplementing that. So our Friends organization has supplemented between 15 and 20% of that 19% that we're obligated to spend.
Why don't we want them to do that anymore? That's what I heard.
Good question. No,
We do,
Because, I won't answer that.
don't answer that.
we do still want the Friends to spend a lot of money on library programs, but what we want is for them not to be obligated to spend it on this particular line for the library. The Friends, when they supplement that line, that means that it needs to go directly to books and other materials that are circulating, which is wonderful. It's a core service that we provide, but the Friends also provide a lot of other supplementary services. They provide virtually 100% of the actual programs at the library, the activities that we provide and things like that. So we rely on them to cover a lot of those other kind of core services. So when we're asking them to cover this particular line, which again is a core service of specifically circulating materials, that kind of silos them into having a very specific role in how they're supporting the library. And we want them to be able to be more flexible and to have more money to provide vast and varied programs for the library that meet, the full range of needs and interests of our community there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Did
So-
you raise your hand?
I was just, yeah, can I raise my hand? Sorry. So if they're not spending the 20% here, they're spending it somewhere else. And if they were spending it on the circulating books, the town would pay for the other.
No.
Okay.
So, yeah, what does the Friends pay for? I
Yeah.
mean, what, and how much?
If, you know, if they didn't use the 20% here, they use it for other programs, you're saying.
Like
If
the
you did, if you used it here, then you got a gap somewhere else.
Yeah.
Where would the funding come for that?
Right, so we
Friends.
wouldn't really be able to provide the full range of programs because the Friends, as I said, they provide the funding for all of the activities, those kinds of things that we offer at the library. So they're supplementing the books and materials line as well as funding the programming. And so they would have more money to be able to supplement different programming if they were not obligated to spend a portion on the books and materials.
Okay.
If we don't spend the amount of money needed to meet state aid, we don't get the state aid.
Yeah.
And the state aid this year is about a little over $12,000.
13,600.
I'm sorry?
13,600.
So if we don't use the money, if we don't get the money from someplace, then we don't get the state aid. And as Melanie said, the Friends provide all the monies for the programming. There's no money in this budget for any program.
Remember, these Friends groups are private nonprofits. We can't compel them to do anything.
Sure.
So
You know, it's through
how
the
much
goodness of their.
did you get from the Friends, say, what in a typical year? What's the?
Total amount?
Yeah.
Oh,
Upwards of 80,000.
Yeah, so like the COA, the
Yeah.
Friends are.
Yeah.
Friends.
And I will
Important
also
friend.
say
They're
that
important friends, but that is the role of a Friends group. They're not
Right.
supposed to be collecting money just to keep it in bank accounts. They're
Right,
supporting
right.
their
That's what the
agencies,
Friends of
their
the National Cape
groups.
Cod National Seashore, the programs they put on at the Visitor
Exactly.
Center are mostly Friends supported, nonprofit.
Generally, the Friends groups are doing the nice to haves and the
Yes.
towns are supporting the core services. You want
right, and because this is a required expense, we have to spend that 92% every year. We're asking for it to be included in our operating budget as opposed to coming from this additional funding source.
Gotcha.
And I will also mention, just for what it's worth, that the cost of materials, as with, everything else, is increasing. Cost of digital services continues to increase. And we're working to really try and meet folks in a digital landscape continually as well. We, as we're talking about, loneliness, factors like that, difficulties in transportation, having digital collections is really important to being able to meet the needs of these populations that have different needs and may not be able to access the library in person. But yet we don't want to be having to decrease any amount of what we're offering physically at the library. So we are working to kind of meet things from both sides there. Yeah. So that's-
I'd like to also add that we don't charge any money for any of our programs. All of our programs are free.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm just trying to understand. In time, did I misunderstand then at the beginning, at one time, Friends money was used in this category? And you don't want it to become a habit, so therefore,
Correct.
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah,
So it was
yeah.
used at one time, but
Yeah,
now you want to
yeah.
make sure it,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I understand what you're doing. Thank you.
thank you.
Are there any other questions?
So. Again, the totals. 23% increase in
Mhm.
non-salaried accounts. Of which 20% of that increase is the computer management system, which.
You're talking
gotta
about
do
clams.
Because you're not gonna take that out, right?
That's clams.
No, it's
Yeah,
not clams, it's the other one.
What's CLAM stand? for?
Software licensing.
It's the
Looking at
manager, it's the
Safe
public.
libraries,
Oh, I
automated
wasn't sure what you were referring to.
Yeah, clams is a different line. See, public computer management software, 5,500.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one, because the 5-year agreement ran.
And
So all of a sudden that pops back in.
that was paid by the trustees this year.
For the first 5 years, it was paid by the, yes, so
Yeah,
this will be the
stop
first year.
answering
5 years
questions
is
from
no
Alan.
demand. We haven't had to pay. Yeah, so I
Correct.
gotta pay for it
Yeah,
tonight. You're not
right.
gonna take that out.
Right.
Okay.
And you didn't ask, but we really like the public computer management software. It prevents our staff from having to really be as on top of things. It really prevents them from having a lot of a headache because we've previously had issues where people leave really private things on our public computers and it's just nice not for them to not have to worry about it. Staff don't have to worry about it. And it keeps everything clean and Sharice likes that.
And the next patron doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So.
So there was a 5-year license before, but now it's an annual.
Yeah, I reached out about a multi-year contract, but they said they don't offer that after the first.
Sounds like something they offer you to buy the software
They
and they get you
suck you
hooked.
in.
and
This
then
is what they do.
Yeah.
Business strategy.
It is.
Well, I just mentioned that under the IT budget, so it's pervasive through all the departments. Anything that's software based is moving to a per person per seat license. It's a cloud-based application. So instead of buying a disk and loading it and being able to work off that license for 5 or 10 years, however long you have the PC, every
No
month,
longer,
every
yeah.
year, you're paying for the utilization of the application. So.
Any
Good.
other questions? Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks.
And
Christine.
Christine, we welcome Christine.
Christine?
And I have the salaries are on page 140. Let me get the 140. 137, 38, 39, 140. And the expenses are 145 to 146. Here we go.
So I'm Christine from the Recreation and Beach Office. Thanks for having me. I don't have any state requirements or anything, but I have porta potties. So just, I think that's where you'll see the biggest increase in my budget. We are part of the county bid and that is in process right now. But last year it was $63,000. And I think in talking to Rich, as with anything else that's going up, we just added $10,000 there.
Can I ask you,
Yeah.
Christine, on the porta potties, right? Well, I guess that's actually at some of the beaches. Those are actually national seashore beaches where they put in facilities. At ours, this is really driven by the additions we've made at like campground and First
Right.
Encounter.
Right, so we,
Didn't have before,
yes.
and
so-
those facilities are outdated that are there or.
Well, there are.
Supplemented.
Right, there are 3 beaches that do have bathhouses, Cooks Brook, Wiley Park, and First Encounter. We still put porta potties there because we do close those bathrooms at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, just to have extra facilities. But so there are, I think we have, 15 locations and 18 units that get put out anywhere between like April 1st and get pulled in the end of December. Because we also have them, like here at the Field of Dreams, we had one last season at tea time.
It's at 18 units over 15 locations.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because some of the busier beaches like campground,
Yeah,
we put 2 there.
yeah,
And they have to be cleaned.
And they have to be
daily.
cleaned
yeah,
daily.
oh, yeah.
And the info booth gets 2. Yeah.
It's really not as expensive as it seems when you think about it.
If
The
you
amount of
if you
work.
Divide
Right.
by, yeah.
And then the other part of that is then the 3 buildings that do have, or the 3 bathrooms, we have tight tanks that have to be pumped. So that's the other part of the rentals and leases.
So I have a couple of questions. I know we've had problem getting swimming instructors and lifeguards. What's the story for this summer?
So that was going to be one of my answers for my biggest challenges is staffing. I mean, it's part-time, even year-round at our after-school program. And every year for summer, we hire roughly 40 to 45 people. And it's just become harder and harder because the wages, we're asking employees to do a lot of stuff. Like, we're cleaning bathrooms, we're taking care of children, or you're lifeguarding, or you're teaching swim lessons. And there's other jobs that pay
More?
more. We have upped our rates, and we are very competitive with other towns. Rich has given me a scale that I can work with. So instead of somebody coming to me where it used to be, you get $16, now I have a range of 16 to 19. So somebody coming with experience, so we have that flexibility. It is still just, I think they're tough jobs. I think we saw the change first come with sharks for lifeguards, and then we saw COVID. You know,
And
we don't-
housing, how?
And housing, right, if it's not a local person or somebody who's coming for the summer, right, it's tough, it's tough.
So do you expect to be able to even have swimming lessons this summer?
Well, fingers crossed, I had a conversation with the 4 swim instructors that were with us last year, and they all said they were coming back one more year. So hopefully those 4 do come back, we would be able to run swim lessons like we did last year. And it was great, we enrolled 77 children last summer.
Yeah, how many?
77, yeah,
At Wiley?
at Wiley.
Marley.
Yep.
How many beaches do you
Oh my God.
provide services to, Kristen?
13,
13.
13 beaches.
13 beaches.
What portion of those 77 are local kids?
All of those were Eastham children. Yes, that's what we did first because only had 4 instructors, where in the past we've had 8. So if I have more, I would
Right.
gladly open it up to me. And that's pretty much how, I mean, all our programs do run. There are certain activities that we do that are league sports that maybe if other towns can't support a soccer team, we'll bring in other towns, but predominantly it's, yes, Eastham.
Are they paying for the swimming
Yep.
lessons?
Also, all of my programs do. That is the other, my difference is operate on a revolving account. So they pay a fee to the town. And then that money goes back into the program, whether it's, you know, supplies, snacks, bathing suits, trophies.
Is there a Friends of Eastham Recreation?
There is not.
There is
No.
not.
Hmm.
There is
Hmm.
not. And so it's interesting. I like to support this because I think I think the perception is that recreation is some kind of extra item
Optional thing.
as opposed to a vital human service
Right.
that people need.
Right.
But Christine has 3 full-time year-round staff, including herself. I don't have the library account in front of me, but it's probably 7 or 8. And the
7
COA has 5.
Yeah.
Christine has 13 beaches, 50 summer employees, plus she runs a a full-time summer youth program with
108 kids last summer.
108 kids every day.
And then in March, we're celebrating our 2-year anniversary of taking over the ECEC program,
At the elementary school.
which is now Rec 2, we like to call it, after school program. And we have 78 children enrolled in that program, 51 to 56 a day. And that's 46% of the elementary school population just in that program. That's not including children who do clubs with us or soccer or go on field trips with us. That's just,
So I just want to bring that to your attention because it is an amazing lift for a very tiny staff. And I think the only reason we're sliding with this right now is because Christine is a phenomenal manager, which is why I promoted her. But, you know, if Christine leaves, we're going to be in trouble. And I think she has a great staff, but they work really hard on very odd schedules to cover
Yeah.
all these things. And it's a lot in the summer to have, you know, over 100 children a day in a program that you have to feed 2 meals and
And then
and
sending
run
staff out
13
in
beaches.
kayaks in freezing cold water for that duck race, which is an
Exactly.
essential activity. It is, I mean.
So
so we
we
get to do
do-
those, yes, we
I
love those
so
fun.
many-
We do
yeah.
need a Friends of the Rec, and Christine does have the ability to create revenue for the town, and she
Yeah.
does. So the beach revenue every year is upwards of
Right.
right around 600,000.
Big town last
And
year.
the after-school and summer programs are pretty self-supporting, except
Mhm.
for a few of those staff people.
Is all the money from the stickers used for recreation?
None of it is, other than what you see in the budget.
Oh,
She doesn't get, it all goes into the general fund.
okay.
So you say you're looking for 40, 45 in the
Mhm.
summer. last year, were you able to fill all those slots?
We did fill out, well, outside of lifeguards. We,
Outside of
Outside
lifeguards,
of lifeguards.
still
we
a
didn't fill.
challenge there.
Still a challenge there. And that's a challenge across the
Right.
Cape.
Yeah.
It really is. I don't want to, off the top of my head, I know Barnstable used to lifeguard, I want to say upwards of 8 or 10 beaches. I think they're down to 4 or 6 now.
Mm.
Yeah.
So do you expect the same kind of challenge? Do you, I'm trying to get at, when I was growing up, these jobs were like primo.
Primo,
you know?
yeah,
right.
So what's changed? Are the kids finding jobs elsewhere?
I think like I was saying, it's the
Are the kids
shark.
getting jobs? Or-
Yeah, I think they
Yeah.
are. I think they're getting jobs at equal pay for less responsibility.
Okay,
You're responsible for watching the water, saving people's lives.
sure.
That's a big thing.
And my
I
daughter
think-
works in a coffee shop and makes $20 an hour plus $100 a day in
Doesn't have to
tips.
work weekend maybe or something.
Right.
I don't know.
And there are no
Do we
shocks.
pay for the certification for a
I
lifeguard?
will if they stay the summer, then I'll reimburse them. at the
Okay.
end. Yes,
Mhm.
that's an offer we've made to try to, entice people to come.
And do you go to the high school and try to recruit?
We
up
go to
there?
the high school
I know
job
I'm
fair,
asking the obvious.
Went to the Barnstable job fair. And
Yeah.
we work with the guidance, counselor at the high school, the
Hmm.
tech.
I mean, it's a great place
Yeah.
that I'm sure you're aware of to try to get kids from
Oh,
other
absolutely.
towns, right?
Yeah,
You'll take someone
absolutely.
from Orleans,
Mhm.
right?
I will.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And she does very well, except for the lifeguards, and I think everyone's had problems.
Right.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
all over.
knock on wood, we've been fortunate that I get a lot of staff that comes back year after year. And I have, lucky to have the staff that I do have.
I have a question about the sticker program.
Mhm.
I've read somewhere where there's a program that the town, instead of going through the process of going to the rec department and getting a sticker and putting it on your car and then going through the refuse and having it checked and all the other stuff, since it's based on your license, not your registration, no, your car.
Car registration number, right?
No,
Mhm.
yeah,
License
car
plate.
registration, yeah. There's some sort of like the toll booth,
There's a plate reader.
plate, yeah, something that,
I'm gonna
that-
defer to Rich.
I'm sorry? Where the plate will be red
Right.
and you can go in without dealing with the
Mhm.
people at the sticker office, the stickers, the mailing, the paper, all the insanity, I'll call it, of dealing with all of that. And the beaches?
There's lots of things we could do, and we can even institute pay by plate, if you're driving around Massachusetts, you get a month later,
Easy
you get
pass, yeah.
you do that type of thing. But it requires a couple things. First, we gotta up our game on our online payment servicing. It's actually been something we've been working on the last couple months. And something we're doing for stickers or not
Mhm.
transfer station, because
Stickers.
stickers, not the because we had an issue at the transfer station. So there's lots of little things you gotta get in place to make sure that it works. And so the other thing, especially at the beaches, if you're gonna do a license plate reader, is you need to have connectivity to have cameras that can do it. You gotta have stability in that connectivity. So, so you don't wanna miss the best day on a Saturday or a Sunday. And you have thousands of people going in and you didn't read any of their plates type of thing,
And it's probably honestly still cheaper to have, 15-year-olds paying $17 an
And all
hour than it
this-
would be to
Oh,
do
the-
all
oh,
of
the
those.
beach-
Convenience
technological
comes at a
upgrades.
cost, yeah.
Dennis went to plate reader technology at their beaches and had nothing but problems because of the cellular service. And that's, in a much better cellular range than we have. So. Plus you have to have little card machines, it's all kinds of.
So I have another question. You have in here, field, let me see, I'm looking for it, page 145. Field maintenance,
Yes.
where did I have it?
Under professional and technical.
Yeah. And it looks like, well, you don't have anything for actual for 2023 and nothing 22, 21. Why isn't that being done by the DPW?
Some of it is. Yeah, they do mow and do a ton of maintenance for us. But I have to buy the supplies for like the infield mix. We have an irrigation system that's out there that's very old. So I buy a lot of the materials and then they do the labor on it.
So this is just for the materials,
It's
The-
materials, parts, yeah.
the 5,000?
Well, and they don't like if we have 2 wells out there for the irrigation. One of them is starting to go, like that would be
Sinking a new one.
new well, and the DPW couldn't do that.
Mm-mm.
Right.
It's for this field?
Yes, I was like, I always did that.
I thought
So,
we did it. I thought we just redid that.
Didn't,
field.
yeah, is
No.
that the
CPA,
CPA project?
yeah.
The irrigation was not part of that project.
Right.
No. No,
It could be part of another.
it could be, yeah.
Absolutely. Eligible.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize, I thought that the CPA, the monies for the Field of Dreams, it was for the Field of Dreams.
It was for the remodel of the basketball court, the
Of
addition of
everything.
pickleball courts, the
Yeah.
whole new playground and the dugouts.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that's a question. And I have another question on the skateboard,
Yes.
because they came for us to CP, I shouldn't say us, to CPA for monies this year.
Yeah.
And that's, let me see, that's page 145, 2.
Yeah, 4,200.
4,200, yeah.
Yes.
And I was under the impression that we, the town, had been paying monies to that for a number of years, and I don't see anything on here for actuals.
We
It is
have
an
been
actual
paying
donation that's
every
made
year.
every year.
No, Mary,
Yeah.
the actuals are on that line, professional and technical.
They'll look
The
together.
budget amounts are the amounts that are in the line, but we don't break out, I don't parse every single account and break it out by each individual thing.
But in this
So last
instance,
year,
it's the same.
7,250.
So they're
Oh,
included in that total account.
is that part of the 7,251?
Yeah, we have,
That is
a
the 7,000.
we have a contract. We give them $4,200 in cash every year. There's no actuals. It's just, that's the actual
Okay,
contract.
okay. I didn't know whether that was included in this, and you've broken out the 7,251 for the items on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Those budgets.
Where is it?
It's a regional skate park. It's on the grounds of the Norset
Orleans.
Middle School. So it's
Yeah.
Orleans,
Yeah.
Brewster and East Ham.
It's down in, it's
I know
down
where
in,
that is.
Yeah.
down in Orleans, near
That's a
near
great
the
park.
baseball
Great park.
field,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know where that was.
sort of south of the baseball.
Have
field.
you used it
I
though?
was just gonna.
Okay.
Do you have money in for additional pickleball courts? You working on that?
That was the only question.
We have lots of ideas, though.
Free, it's free.
I've heard something about making maybe 1 or 2 of the tennis courts at the high school into pickleball courts. Given the amount of.
This is an idea that the pickleball players have thrown out.
It's an excellent idea. My understanding is that the way the high school tennis authority operates, you cannot have pickleball lines on a tennis court they use for interscholastic tennis.
Oh.
I just think that's an issue.
Hmm.
Based on what I understand. But it would be a great place to put it.
Yeah, it would be. Yep,
But the Nauset tennis team probably needs a place to play tennis too.
but there are 5,
That's-
there are 5 courts.
That's when it
I
gets
think
you.
there are 5 courts
All
up
the
there.
time. Just buy a couple of mobile nets, put them up there, divide the courts up.
Oh, yeah.
Just use the lines that are there.
Yeah, I think you could make
Well,
1
Chris-
tennis court into 2 pickleball courts.
We've done that. Christine's lined the
That's a
elementary
Elementary school,
school.
we have 2 lined,
Have
yeah, for
2.
inside pickleball. We
Mm.
have 2 lined courts inside the elementary school gym currently.
Yep.
That's something and I wasn't sure, we had a question about CPA funding, but then I thought pickleball is active rec, tennis is active rec, it would probably be.
CPA paid for the tennis
Yeah.
courts.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So,
CPA has built many of the tennis courts around the Cape.
Yeah.
CPA. money.
Any other questions? Comments? Thanks very much, Christine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, thank you for coming. Let me see, now we've got Veterans Service, that's on page 147.
Yeah, it's a simple one. That has not too much to do with us. We participate in the Cape and Islands Veterans Service District. It's its own separate district that is in lieu of every town having their own veterans agent. We have, I think we're up to 5 now veterans agents on Cape Cod. Work out of Barnstable, and they provide office hours in every single town on the Cape. And they provide us with an assessment each year, and so that amount reflects their assessment to us. And then we also provide a sum of money for veterans benefits. And I'm feeling like the actual under 23 has to be a typo, so I'm gonna double check that.
Okay, just.
Would you repeat that, Rich? What were you saying?
Page 147.
Yeah, what did,
So in addition to the assessment, which is to pay for the administrative services of the Veterans District, each town pays its own claims related to the veterans residing in their town. So if there's any benefits, veterans benefits, we pay for those. And so that we've been carrying 40,000. Traditionally, we're spending 25 to 30,000 on benefits. As I understand it, some of the eligibility requirements and cost requirements associated with benefits are increasing. So we've been told by the head Veteran Services agent to expect, some amount of increase in the benefit costs.
because the actual for 23 was only 2008.
That's what you're saying.
But I
is
just said,
Typo,
so I
yeah.
gotta go back and double check. I think I missed
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah, that was a question that I had.
Rich, do we get an assessment based on number of
Based-
veterans we have, or how do they?
Actually, I think it's based on, it might be part that, but I think largely it's based on what's called equalized valuation. It's a state.
We get a little percentage, like we pay, Falmouth pays 40% and we pay 13% or something of the regional office costs and all that. That's part of the assessment.
Is allocated on some basis?
Yeah, that.
Basis of equalized valuation.
Oh, equalized valuation of the overall town?
Yeah, which is the
Okay,
same
got
way
it.
like the Cape Cod Commission votes
Right.
and the.
So it has nothing to do with the population.
No.
No, but the cost, the actual
characteristics.
benefits cost, that has to do with the population.
Right, okay.
Who sets the benefits menu? The state?
Federal
Federal,
government.
it's the
Veterans.
Veterans Affairs.
So it's kind of like the library. They tell you you're gonna spend this.
Exactly.
No, it's not what they tell you can spend. It depends on your caseload, how many
Oh,
veterans
yeah,
you
but
have,
they
and what
say,
needs they have.
they say if it gets spent, you're gonna spend it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you need case management services or you need to go to the VA and you have some sort of claim, or you're a widower or you're a spouse of a veteran, you have, certain benefits you're eligible for. So these veterans agents line up all these people, manage all these cases, work them through the VA system. And they do an amazing job.
So what percentage of the whole national VA budget is divvied out like this?
It's interesting. That would be interesting
Yeah.
to know.
I'm just curious.
The Cape doesn't have, it doesn't have a VA hospital. I know that. And it does, I think.
Well, that's why transportation's
Yeah,
included in this.
Boston and Providence probably do. And I think Fall River or New Bedford has some veterans.
Fall River, I've heard something about Fall River.
Administration,
Hospital.
a hospital.
A
We have
hospital.
vet hospitals in Brockton, Jamaica Plain, West Roxbury,
Okay.
Providence, Rhode Island. I mean,
Yeah, but not out here on the Cape.
no.
Yeah.
We go to Providence.
Yeah. I think I had to do a
And Brock.
a retirement disability thing and I had to I went to Fall River, I think.
Or a Veterans Hospital, might have been.
Yeah, it was,
I
yeah,
worked-
anyway,
I've worked for
it's
the
like,
vets.
what? I can't go on the Cape anywhere? No.
I just want to make a comment to you, Rick, on, the state aid for the library does not have to be spent in the year that it's received. It can
Oh,
be,
really?
it can be kept
Carry.
and carried.
That's good.
Any other questions on the community services, the veteran service? We're now down to the community services area, I shouldn't say area, department. Committee. It is on page 148 and 149 in your packet,
It's the human service.
human services, yeah.
They're meeting tonight, and so we don't have exact amounts. They may reallocate
Oh,
some of
because I
these.
was just wondering what's down here is exactly what was down for last year.
Yep, and they may
so-
move my numbers.
We understood that there might be some changes on that, so just to point out, hopefully, in the final version of this, I don't expect in total it'll change too much. But the third line down, or second line down, or it's the third, but second number. Eastham Committee on Early Childhood, 16,000.
Mhm.
That'll go away since we know that, no, we no longer support that. We run those programs essentially. But the vast majority of that's gonna go added most likely into the Navigator program, which is gonna have an increased cost assigned to us. And, you know, whatever
What is
else.
that, Rich? What is the Navigator program?
So, the Navigator program is through Outer Cape Health Services. It started in Provincetown, and it is an emergency social worker who deals with the caseload of people who are truly desperate, homeless, you know, need placement, need immediate services, need hospitalization. They do a lot of work. So we now have, because of the 4 towns regional efforts, so this is another Hillary program, the Navigator started with the health agents. We have put it into our human service budget. So they have 5 full-time navigators that work between Provincetown and Eastham. Eastham has 1 full-time person on our own. And it's administered through Outer Cape Health Services, their behavioral health unit. And it's the police, the fire, the COA, they really use this service. It helps us. They love it.
Do we have any homeless, what I would call homeless people in Eastham?
Yes.
One of the things I also want to point out is under the family support packages over onto page 149.
Yep.
Continue to appropriate the previous year's override amount of 490,500. Looks a little askew because the actuals represent what was spent during those years, but as you might recall, at the end of each year, whatever's not spent, we
Put
take a
it-
vote to transfer it back to the article,
Right,
so it carries over for the purpose for which we've raised the money. It doesn't become part of our free cash.
Is all of this free cash?
No, it's in your budget. It's in the budget.
The budget is it being paid for with free cash?
None of this
No.
budget that anything in the operating budget is not funded at all by free cash. It's
Okay,
all
okay,
tax levy
okay.
and local receipts.
So any excess then stays in the family support package to spend for future needs.
Yes.
So that.
That's what I
budget will grow.
referenced, the free cash is
Yeah, that-
anything
that-
we don't spend
Yep.
gets
That-
transferred
that-
out.
that-
except
that-
for
that-
your vote.
That's just
This does not.
Does not.
So how much is in
That-
there right
that-
now?
the family support package?
Yeah.
It's quite a bit.
Which is in,
Yeah, I did this a while back. I think I sent it to Mary. I'll have to
Yeah,
get that.
I didn't bring that folder. But there was that sort of 3 pieces, and there's 100,000 in there for housing, which hasn't all been used. And there's 100,000 in there for meals, which hasn't been used because we had COVID and the state provided the monies for the nutritional package, and then there was,
So
and now the state's doing it all.
I'd like to answer this question.
Sure.
So, so the $100,000 is being used right now for debt service, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
So we've been using $100,000 a year going towards debt service.
Starting this year.
Starting this year.
That service for housing.
Yeah.
And
The Beach
for
Plum.
workforce housing, yeah,
Yep.
Beach Bum. And the $100,000, the $117,000 that was supposed to be for food, the state picked up that program, so we moved that money into pre-K, so 2.9 years old and younger. We're giving a benefit, and the select board just raised that benefit to $5,000 a year.
how is the decision made on each of these things every year?
There's a committee that
Human
meets
Services
and
Committee. That's what Jackie mentioned is meeting tonight
Yeah.
to go over the recommendations.
And
for
they
these
meet with
various
every single committee. So we do an application, Rick, out
Mm-hmm.
every August to all the agencies that either request it or have had funds before. They have to return that, and then the Human Services Committee meets from October to probably late February to come up with their recommendations for the budget and for the allocation of funds. So we get quarterly reports from all of these programs, and we have signed contracts with all of them that we do right after town meeting. So right after town meeting, we sign a contract to give them that amount of money.
And those quarterly reports also demonstrate service to Eastham residents because This goes to the anti-aid
So
amendment
you
of the
can measure
Constitution.
that, so you can
Make sure that we're paying for these aren't just donations to nonprofit groups, although not all of them are nonprofit, but many of them are nonprofit groups. So we're not just giving money to them for the sake of giving, we're giving them for purchasing their services, delivering service to our Eastham residents. So that quarterly reports reflect, the services provided to town, so to speak.
Yeah, I know nobody's here right now, and as you say, I was aware that, I think they're meeting at 6:30 or something. I was wondering whether there were programs that, where folks have come in looking for money and they've decided for one reason or another, they either don't feel that they can cover it, or they can't, they decide not to increase it or something of that nature. I wasn't sure what sort of conversations go on,
No,
because
they,
there's no new entity here. They're
Right.
all the same.
they are, because when a new entity comes, we either have to create more operating budget for it, right?
Or
Or we have to
reduce.
take it away from someone else. So, but I don't believe that anyone's asked for funds other than, I think we got rid of one,
Get rid of,
Consumer Assistance Council.
Gosnold.
The first,
yeah,
it's not listed up, that's the first item on
Yeah, so
the,
consumer assistance in Gosnold, we've eliminated to make room for some more local programs
Mhm.
is I think how they choose. So how many Eastham residents do you serve? That's their primary. And how essential is the service? That's why I think they always go towards some of the ones that provide food or immediate emergency assistance or things of that nature.
Mhm.
They do a really great job. There's several social workers, a lot of people with human service background on that committee, and they do a very thorough job with it.
So Jackie, is it safe to say, based on what you said, that we really don't carry a lot of balances here, like you?
Oh, we
you know,
don't
I
carry
was
any.
saying,
They
so if it's-
collect
So they
100%.
get spent, like you
Yes.
just said, whether
Yes.
it was to the debt and the.
So we sign a contract and we make the payments quarterly, so they turn in their
the-
report.
to
Yes.
these entities,
Yep.
and then that committee disperses them according to these areas, is that
That
fair?
the committee just
Yeah, I don't think they
the
dispersed them.
committee looks at all of the applications.
Yep.
They recommend the funding and then they look at the reports.
Yep.
So that next year they can make good decisions, but they don't we actually pay the
The
bills.
town does.
Yeah, out of
Based on these categories here.
That's right.
Okay, and the Navigator program, you were talking about that, with the emergency services people.
Yeah.
Did you say that was coming up? What did you mention?
It's
about?
got likely going to increase,
it's gonna
probably in the
increase.
35,000 range, I'd imagine.
Because of the demand?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So you could be, if you increase that, you've taken off the 16, so you'll have some. Yeah, and I was looking at the charge
And
today.
I'm sorry,
No.
one more thing. The ARPA program that we're piloting now, if
Oh.
we decide to continue that,
Yeah.
that would then go into this budget as well.
So that would be added.
So how do you decide whether to raise these numbers or not?
That's-
Over the
It's
course
so-
of time, your dollar buys less, right?
That's-
It's
Yeah.
totally random,
Or reduce.
honestly.
Oh,
Because
oh,
right now we have $25 in excess capacity and
26. I
Six.
thought it was
okay,
26.
26. And we haven't gotten the school budgets yet, so we're giving them a flat, no raise
But
this
the-
year.
Same, it was the same last year and the year before.
Yeah,
They've been
yeah.
Level for quite a few years,
Yeah,
but this probably isn't the year to try. to
This
raise
isn't the
it.
year.
so, okay, so this is kind of a fit to the budget. These are services we gotta add.
Yeah.
We don't want to cut them.
No, we
Look at
want to
any
contribute
increases.
to them.
Yeah.
We don't 100% support them. Like, we're not
Not the
paying.
only ones.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty much every town on Cape Cod is gonna be contributing to these groups. more
And
likely than
Eastham
not.
gives
re-
more than most. It's
We're
not
really
like,
assuming we get leverage by
Yeah, right.
participating.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but I'm just looking at from the budget perspective, these, as Peter just said, these budgets remaining constant, 4% less of whatever inflation is every year for
Yeah,
these
yeah.
people. So
It's
It's
not
like
we're
great.
providing less services every year.
Mhm.
A little bit, yeah.
With across the
same
board,
dollars.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But that was helpful. Thank you.
If you'd like to raise them, we can, but then we have to cut
After
something
we
else.
finish wastewater, we can
Make
raise.
sure people understood that.
Well, that's why I asked whether there were some that had come in that they had decided not to,
We want any more.
not to support. And I have another question. I was looking at the charge. It says that the committee shall be charged with the responsibility of follow-up on projects or agencies which are funded by the town in order to determine the quality of the service rendered. What sort of follow-up does the committee do?
They do personal interviews every year. So they'll do an interview once the application comes in.
Mhm.
They look at the reports from last year. They look at the ask for this year and the services that are being, requested. And then they interview the people. And so they'll notice, like, I think that's why we eliminated a couple of places, because you notice that they don't have, they're serving 2 Eastham residents or whatever. So when it gets to that point,
Mhm.
they use the money for something
Something
else.
else.
I don't think there's a huge assessment. We asked for specific information on the reports, amount of money spent on Eastham residents, amount of Eastham residents served. I mean, I can give you an example of that, but I
that-
wouldn't say there's a serious evaluation, but I do think that they give it a lot of thought.
Mhm. So when is that evaluation submitted? That paperwork you're talking
They're
about?
doing it now. So they
Mm.
get the applications back in October and then they start interviewing and meeting with each group. So
Mhm.
there's not one group on this list that they haven't
Right,
had a
right.
full hour and a half with.
No, but what I'm saying is that when they come in to discuss it, are they bringing in an evaluation of the prior year of
They're looking
Oh.
at the reports that they got. And
when
they
the
are,
submission was
asking-
received?
right,
Mhm.
what they said they were gonna do the prior year, what they actually did the prior year.
Okay.
They have that
Okay,
information
that's
going
what I
into-
wanted to know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's a regional committee?
No, it's just Eastham.
Just
Just
East
Eastham.
Ham
Yeah.
for this.
for
And they
these
just
monies.
meet from, I want to say September through February, and then they disband.
And it's called the Human Support.
Human Services
Or
Committee.
It is,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's if you look under the boards and commissions,
They have
it's one of
terms,
the
3-year terms.
one, yeah, it's just like us in that regard. Any other questions on the community services, human services? Okay. We have completed the budget review. I don't have any other, I should say any other, I do not have any old business at the moment. Does anybody have, Russ?
I just, because sometimes it's confusing at what we're looking at during these meetings. I would personally, on the budget review, every single item that we're going to look at to be listed by this book, page 147, 148, whatever it is. Budget review, so that I could go to this book and start looking at things, exactly what we're going to review during this meeting. I find this a little confusing. The library, recreation, COA, health, environment, it's all over it's just bloody all over the book. And it would be very convenient to look at it, because that seems to be what we're reviewing. And if that makes sense, I'd like us to at least look into it.
I'm still not sure exactly. When I sent out the agenda and the information, I gave the pages, exact pages for each one of the departments that we were going to be reviewing.
Yeah, I'll add them to the agenda.
Where did I miss that, Mary?
I don't know. I sent it out in an email. Oh, my phone is turned off.
It's not a problem. I'll add them to the agenda if it's helpful. That's fine.
Mhm.
So next agenda, we'll have our specific departments and I'll list the page numbers to reference.
Yeah.
Okay, because the stuff, it may save you some work too, because the stuff that you send out, you can't reconcile it with with this book because it doesn't call it out anywhere. It looks like it's exactly what's in this book. From, I didn't go over this, but I would just like to work off of one book, which is this one.
Yeah, what I did was I saw the ones listed and looked through and put the purple stickies to knowing what, I mean, but that took
yellow
extra
ones.
work.
These
mean,
ones.
Right.
I tab mine, so.
So,
There's
yeah, but it would be helpful to have,
Mhm.
just to have the page listed so I wouldn't be flipping through them all. Which one's that? Which one's that? But you could do it. It just was extra.
But I'm just
extra.
saying that I sent that information out to everybody
Yeah, Mary did say, I've got it.
Right.
I remember I used it.
because I thought that would be helpful because it wasn't on the agenda.
Hey, Russ?
Yeah.
On page 33, it breaks down the departmental budget documents.
Hmm.
And I just tabbed that page and called it an index. And then you can look through and find the page number for each one of those. So that you can easily, find what page the different departments are on. Once you have to do a little work to fill in the page numbers, but
So putting those for next printout, which you don't need to
Yeah.
chop a bunch of trees down yet, but it would be
Yeah.
if you could put the page numbers on that.
Yeah, yeah.
And when, as long as we're on this, when you're putting the binding together, that they face the same way. Anyway.
She actually gave us a print.
Oh, I didn't get the new, yeah,
New-
okay, sorry. So,
She's gone.
okay, sorry,
maybe she got them right there.
You got a couple books back here.
yeah, okay. Cancel that.
Okay, the only other thing I have under old
It's not
business is
pretty, but it's
we
pretty
did talk about sending questions to the various
Mhm.
departments and we haven't really done anything about that. I have the questions that I put together and said, I'm speaking mainly of the police, the fire and the DPW. Do people want to include the questions that we used last year or not do anything, or what are people's thoughts?
I thought we were gonna cycle the questions we had last
Yeah,
year.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Item 2.
And I'll just put them, have Mira put the questions that we have in the packet for the ones that, for the, depending upon the departments that we're reviewing. Any other comments on, under old business?
Read through.
Are you talking about the regional, you're talking about school?
Full business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Brewster put quite an effort into response back to the committee. Are we doing the same, or are we relying on the fact that we notified finance committee from other towns?
So we provided them our comments. The question though is they did
Send it.
quarterly put an assembled together and then sent it out to all the times. And I know Jackie sent it to us and you provided it to the school.
And I don't
mean,
know if I
select-
got everybody's email, because I didn't have everybody's email, so if someone didn't get it, just let me know.
Maybe I forwarded.
I got it.
Okay.
I got it, yeah.
But I guess the question is, are all the towns gonna be formally responding back to the regional?
Yeah, what was the ask, Jackie, with what came?
What,
you
what?
gave
the-
it to the select
Yeah,
board,
it
right?
said, no, it said basically share it with the finance committee and probably the select board.
Right.
So I guess, I mean, what would be good is if we all could agree on one set of recommendations, right? So
So,
I'll share it with the select board at their next meeting and we can,
well, you probably don't have those, the comments we gave them.
no,
Okay,
Yeah.
so we could probably share that with Jackie.
okay.
Because I think there was two things to select board. When we talked to the select board a few weeks ago, there was two things they wanted. They wanted to make sure rolling 3-year average was used
Yeah.
and that we were in a disciplined schedule in terms of getting
Getting
copy of the budget,
information.
work into our budget cycle. And we provided that to the Brewster folks who were gonna consolidate things. I'll be honest with you, I haven't had a chance to go back and look at what you gave us and compare it to the comments.
Okay,
But those were the two big things that we wanted to get in there.
okay.
I don't know whether any other town brought anything that we're in conflict with what we had.
And I haven't received
the-
anything so
Yeah,
far from other towns other than Brewster.
Well, but they had representatives from the finance committees of all 4 towns at this meeting that Brewster sort of organized. And so they had opportunity, all the towns had opportunity to
Give comment, give comment.
suggestions, yeah. And I think because I did look at I read the letter that came from Brewster that they sent, and I think our comments were reflected in that.
Yeah.
Basically they just kind of plugged in, as they said, they kind of want to do the whole Monomoy regional budget section. They're recommending to just lift it and put it right into the Nauset regional agreement, and that has the timelines. But the budget and the regional agreement subcommittee that met last Monday night at the same time the RTE, the select board meeting was going on, talked about it for quite a while, and I think, how was it left? It was left that Giovanna, who's really puts the budget together, is gonna meet with the lawyer for the district that's working on all the changes.
Nancy Company?
Yeah, and try to put together a timeline that's doable for Giovanna. It may not be exactly what
For
we asked
approval, you
for. Well, at least get her,
Okay.
Giovanna's input into what she thinks she can do. And
Oh,
then,
okay.
and then on that
Because I know Brewster was driving pretty hard to try to get this to the town meeting this year. And there was a lot of question whether
we make.
it's
time was gonna make it with everybody.
I don't think it's gonna make it this year.
So, there's this.
Negative.
At
No, I
first,
don't
we're a
think-
little worried. that
I don't think
something's gonna
anybody
get rid of
wants it.
too Fast.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants it to go to town meeting this year because
Okay.
there's gonna be
Won't have
such,
time.
yeah, and there's so much change, and they want to be more transparent about it and get input from the towns.
Well, that's good that we're not on that track, because I think it's something we're all gonna want to look at based on, even though we provided comments, other towns might have provided something
Right.
that, and there was a couple of things we didn't agree with that were originally proposed.
I mean, if you wanted to do it, we still have time, like the warrants don't usually go to the printers until the beginning of April,
April.
so. Wellfleet's a week earlier than us,
Yeah,
but
that
other
was,
than that,
that was part of the problem, was trying to figure out when we wanted them, the finance folk, to get the information to us in time for them to be able to do what they need to do because of their warrant.
well, anytime
schedule.
before March
I think
15th.
the problem on the school side is they're doing their budget thing right now. They're in the budget season, so they really, it's the same people.
Yeah.
There's draft budgets and they, I think my impression was they don't think they can do the budget and the regional agreement, but
the same
before the
time?
town meetings,
Mm.
yeah. But we'll see. Another thing I took away from that committee meeting is they talked about, the timing and when the finance committees and the select boards could see the draft. They had 4 different terms for the preliminary
Draft
budget.
proposal.
Preliminary, tentative, draft, and proposed. And they kept interchanging. So they're gonna try and define those terms and maybe narrow it down to 2. But
Draft and final would be.
Yeah, draft
Be
and
good.
final, what's it?
Be good.
Yeah.
Well, that was actually one of our comments.
that was
What
one of-
about
yeah.
draft number 1 and draft number 2?
Something. But
Oh.
what they said, was they're sort of already doing what we're asking, in that, when the school committee had their meeting on January 16th, they reviewed the draft preliminary budgets for the high school and the middle school. And it was in their packet, so it's public information, and a couple times during the meeting, they said, and so we send those out as soon as when we're working on them, and I'm wondering who they send them out to. Do they send them out to you?
No, we don't get them.
So maybe they mean by putting them in the packet, it's sending them out, but yeah, I've got the
So we
draft
have to
budget
look at
for
the
the,
packets for all the school. committees?
you gotta dig, but I've got the draft budget as of January 16th for the high school and the middle school, and then we got the one
We
from the
just,
elementary.
I
school.
attended the
So
meeting for the Eastham Elementary School.
You have it electronically?
Steve and I
I
attended.
No, I don't think
And
so.
I think the
I
two
might
of you
have it
were zooming.
Because I asked for it electronically during that meeting and I was conversing with someone until I asked for an electronic
I
copy.
don't know
of
how
it,
else I
and they were
got it if
quiet.
yeah, I think I got it.
We don't have them
Electronically.
yet. Rich and I don't have them yet. So
Well,
No, I
That
think
was-
we did get something just,
Did you,
Just this
have you
week.
seen the one from the elementary school?
so that leads me.
I have that.
That's Excel.
Leads me to my next question, which may be old business, new business, but where are you? Have you gotten new figures? Because there
Well,
are
the
new
problem with-
figures out on these school budgets.
the problem with getting the budgets is, we can get the budget for the school district. That doesn't translate to the assessment. So there's a whole, so we have budget, we know their budget might be going up, say 4% or 5, whatever the percentage is going up. And you might think that's perfectly reasonable or not. That has nothing to do with how much money you're gonna be assessed, because they gotta go through the whole calculation of the assessment. With net school aid, net school spending and enrollments and all that stuff.
and then they do a percentage for
So
us.
even though I have the budget for, I think literally just 2 days ago, I think I got an email with some budget information. It doesn't tell me how much East Ham is being assessed.
It's
It's
just the
not,
total
Just the total of what the high school budget
of
is.
what they're,
Oh, just
The
the total,
draft.
that's all you get?
No, I got some detail, but
I got,
Yeah, but at least we can see what the drivers are to the budget. You know what I mean? If they're going up
if they're.
on average 3% or whether they're.
Honestly, it's very hard to predict until you get that final assessment number. That's what we're
well,
like waiting for.
but we know what our
Assessment.
percentage is gonna be.
yeah, well, the assessment also has to contemplate state aid and that's just now coming out. Right.
State aid. So state aid comes off of that budget?
Mm.
Good.
Yeah, so it's not a clean calculation. You
Yeah.
know, obviously I could take, for 20%, I could take 20% of high school, but it's not just a,
Yeah.
you got state aid, you got formula aid, you got, transportation aid, which is treated different than the other three. It's just, it's all over the place.
But for a draft budget though, and making the same assumptions, roughly that you got last year, you could at least get
Yeah.
a figure of understanding of what we need to say we looked at relative to where the major drivers were for the school budget.
But, but the numbers are coming out and I can tell you, and we do have a better sense of the Cape Cod
Cape
Tech
Tech.
budget, because that's a little more
I
clear.
haven't seen that.
And we're gonna be over these,
And I think our assessment will
prideful.
probably be higher because we have more students,
There's more
our
students.
percentage
At the
increase.
But
tech,
percentage.
we have more students everywhere.
right?
And we're hearing we have a lot of
So that
special,
means the percentage is going to be increased.
The Cape Cod Tech budget did, the lady who was the finance director down there.
She's great.
She did a great job.
She's great.
I mean, if we gave the same thing out of school,
I know.
committee, our job would be so much easier. I mean, she came in and she was boom, 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 boom. To her presentation, everything was easy to follow. You knew what the drivers were, you knew where her concerns were. That's exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah. And they did a great, when they did the
Well-
building project, they did a great presentation on that too, financially.
But it still was last minute. Last year, it was,
I
it was,
bet you though,
it
I
was
got the impression
March.
if we had asked for it earlier, she would have.
we might have been able to get it.
Yep.
So,
She had done analysis before.
when do the state figures come out?
just started coming out. The governor just proposed a state aid budget.
So you could probably,
So we got the governor's version that literally came out, I think, the end of last week,
Yeah.
right after
She
MMA.
did.
Then it goes to the House and then the House will make some changes, but not typically not big changes. But when I say not big changes, they're not big changes in the scheme of things, but any individual community, it could be impactful. So I guess you kind of never know. But generally for East Ham, there's not big changes related to that. But for a school district, there could be big changes because one of the big things is the per pupil aid and
It's
this
been increased, hasn't it?
Cape schools typically haven't been getting funded because of the wealth factors are, so, the school district finances is just totally different. That's why I hesitate to go before we actually have the assessment calculation.
but you're gonna get that fairly soon, so just,
No, well, no,
oh, the assessment calculation, but the state thing.
The
But can't
percentage.
you wouldn't it be helpful for you to make a get a stab at it at some, I mean, you have to sort of, if you're gonna be a couple $1 million over what this shows, you're gonna have to find it in the budget or do an
I
override.
hope we're not a couple of $1 million.
no, I don't think. we'll
Why
do
would
that.
you think that?
Well, I mean, I think the high school budget's
Want the
up
bad news?
8%.
He's gonna give. it to
Well,
you.
plus you don't know when the state budget's gonna get approved. They're like the federal
Right.
government. They're not approving things on time either, you know? So
Yeah,
things could change right up to the minute. We just
I'm
want
just
to be able to
wondering-
get guidance, you know, where they're trying to go.
and then, yeah, how do you do it? I mean, then at some point you gotta figure out.
We have to
if
know
you
April
Squeeze
first.
our budget or do an override, would
Well,
that be the two
maybe,
options?
you know,
We
not,
cut. or
maybe
we-
the way to, you know, because it's a good discussion, but I think it's a little stab in the dark at the moment, but I think doing just what you're doing, and Rick's got great questions, you know, if we gotta cut something, what can we cut? Because, you know, we should keep that in mind. I think I forewarned you, this group committee, when we first presented the budget, you know, we're balanced on a head of a pin. And I'm not sure that these 3% provisions for schools is gonna hold up. And so we ought to be, as you're going through this process, all right, if we, you know, if we come out and we're 100 grand short because of the schools, all right, we could probably find 100 grand, right? For $1 million short, can we find $1 million in our budget? Maybe you can find, you know, a couple 100,000, but you know, so that might change. So, you know, keep that in the back of your mind as you go through these budgets. You know, if it's close, what could we reduce to make it? And if it's not close, you know, what are we willing to cut or do we not, or are we not willing to cut? Yeah.
And that's a real good reason why we shouldn't vote on these things.
No, I
until
agree.
the end.
Till we see exactly where we are.
But just to bring this back home, and Mary asked this last time, our target for this year was to have about $50,000 to $60,000 of excess levy capacity, and we have, you know, essentially zero. And so I was looking, so all those things that you saw tonight, those ads contributing to not having that 50,000, right?
Mhm.
And then on Jackie's ledger, which is on page 7, I think it is, of the budget book. We had some particularly heavy items that I highlighted in here.
Page 7,
Hang on,
They're
no,
not-
page 4,
they're not marked.
it's a town administrators, it should say town manager's budget letter. Page 4 of 210.
Page 4 of 210. Right.
So in that paragraph, right after the summary of the total costs, I talk about the additions, you know, we did pretty well with the collective bargaining agreements. With the reduction in the steps was helpful. That's the presentation, Mary. You gotta go to the budget,
Oh,
page 4.
thank you.
So the collective bargaining agreement reduction in steps was definitely helpful. But we had some increases, some of what you saw tonight that we talked about. And then we had some unanticipated high inflation items. The biggest one being a 50% anticipated increase in electric rates, supply rates. 15% in IT licensing costs. We talked about that a little bit. 20% in increase in public safety hiring cost, training costs. Solid waste disposal and hauling costs. I didn't add, well, I guess it's because it was an ad. You know, porta potties is a driver of costs for us. The ones at the bottom here, those are higher increases, but those are anticipated, so those didn't really contribute to it, but you take those items that we talked about tonight that were new or that were additional, they add up to that excess levy capacity,
Yeah.
basically.
The other thing is we haven't met with the police
I
department
was
yet.
just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Well,
But
we
he-
know what they're gonna.
But he did
ask.
meet with us.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I
I
mean,
mean,
we will be meeting with
Right.
them. I'm just saying we haven't met with them yet. And I just know that their presentation a couple weeks ago was huge.
They're asking for 4 new officers.
Yeah.
You know, that, with the exception of that, are we driving towards 3% of salaries? You know, obviously you got these other things Rich just talked about.
Salaries are good. I think salaries are not our problem this year. It's,
And I had, last year you had the CBAs going on and
Right,
everything, right? So are we in that 3% range in the salaries, and the big things are, you know, like we're seeing here tonight, last week? You know, it's the non-salary expenses that are jumping in many areas, you know.
And like I said,
including what you identified.
the collective bargaining agreements that we agreed to are doing exactly what we wanted them to, which is provide
Stabilizing.
a good salary to our employees.
Yeah.
Which we funded, but then slow the rate of increase with reduced step increases, and it definitely has helped with this budget. And so the reason we're having, the tight budget is these items we saw tonight, the new things that we increased, and then these inflationary items, basically.
Something I said, I was gonna ask you a question about, but I forgot. About to get old.
Next time.
All right, I'm hungry. Must be getting tired. That's. Just one last comment, on this based on what we heard here tonight, and last week. The whole staffing issue is just gonna pressure a town like Eastham, just like it is everywhere else. And somehow we've got to figure a way, and I'm not trying to, we got to figure a way.
Regionalization.
Well, regionalization is one thing. I'm not sure over time whether that's gonna solve it. I really think it's coming down to higher density zoning to attract some of the new people, whether they're immigrants or other people that wanna come to town, that wanna work, that we can start to fill the gap, because population, it's just like Japan. We gotta go read our history books. Japan's population got very old and they didn't have anybody, and everything started to crumble. So what can we do? We have hundreds of thousands of people that wanna come to this country. And they want to work. You know what I mean?
So the good news is, though, we are increasing the density. So that's exactly what the new zoning in the commercial district is trying to do, right? So
Yep.
we're working towards that. Whether the general public will want that or not, I think it's going to be attractive enough so that they'll go, okay, that makes sense. But the good news and the bad news is we are the only town attracting new families and children. So
Yep.
we are up with those, which is great, except when we have to pay the school.
So our
But
our
we just can't
percentage increasing.
And what we're seeing in zoning pushback is not like other towns, and you saw in the governor's budget, some of the penalties that are coming down to towns like Milton that
Yeah.
rejected, zoning that they were told they had to have, and I think we ought to get out ahead of this,
I think
and-
we are.
And look at the zoning we are. I know
Yep.
there's been some proposal. Is it gonna be enough? Based on what we see our workforce needs.
I just don't think zoning works fast. That's our problem. Like,
So what
I
can we
mean,
do?
our,
Right.
our accessory dwelling bylaw, it takes like 3 to 5 years for us to notice zoning on the ground, because people have to, oh, okay, I can do this. Then they have to get the money to do it. Then they have to do it,
and the
so.
Permitting and everything else.
So that's the thing about zoning. It's essential, but it takes a
long
while.
time.
Like we have the duplex by right. Has anyone done a duplex yet? No.
Yeah.
But we allow it.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I just think we ought to get, Sear and Peak and whoever replacement is gonna be, and, these are the things that they need to be working for us, you know what I mean? And otherwise.
and we
we're
also
gonna
need
Find ourselves in the same
Well,
situation as.
to
our sister
look
towns
at
right
this
now, don't-
housing bond bill and make sure that it doesn't, make sure it has workforce housing, more money towards workforce housing, which is what we need, as opposed to just, affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
Yeah, and you gotta give us the freedom to manage it so that it solves our problem.
Yes. And the state's saying they need 200,000 units, you know what I mean? What is it that we need? Not what's the rule, not
We're
what the
supposed,
state requirement is.
our plan says 300, I think, at
Oh,
least, and it's been revised, so.
It was 200.
Our housing production plan.
Housing
So it's gone up
production
by
plans.
3%.
Yeah,
You see
but-
what they did in Beverly Hills? Beverly Hills did not meet their affordable housing. So the state has shut off all building permits for the town
Oh, my God.
until they put forth.
Until
a
they
plan and
put, until they
begin
put
to-
a
begin
plan
to
in
do
place
it.
to take
Ah,
care of the
can't get-
problem.
You buy a house in Beverly Hills for X millions of dollars, you can't make any changes to it.
Mm.
That's
That would
probably
speed
gonna get a
things up.
reaction.
Cause pain to them.
Well, and
That's no
And
screen
we're-
porch for you.
our problem is, it's not just Eastham, it's a regional problem.
Yeah, yeah.
With the employment and the workforce and
That's
all
right.
that. So Orleans is making some strides right now.
Yeah.
That's gonna help a
Right.
lot.
Actually-
Taking it out of the park.
Yeah.
They're the ones. that
Yeah.
They just, have you
absolutely-
gone by the old Cape Cod 5 building where they?
Right, they tore
I
that
went
up.
by there yesterday. It's just, they've just, oh, yeah.
So just so you know, out of this last year's budget round, all 5 of the Cape programs got funded. So Provincetown, Truro, Wellfleet, Orleans, and Brewster. So we're gonna have they'll move into the construction phase with 5 new.
Of affordable housing, right?
Regional.
Yeah,
And how many units is that gonna mean for East
I
Hampton?
don't know. I mean, for Eastham,
Yeah.
it won't mean anything for Eastham, but it'll mean something for the region.
I mean,
Right.
Penrose.
Yeah, but I'm.
It doesn't matter, like you.
No, I agree. Someone can live in New Orleans and come
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Still
We're also
apply.
trying
The
to-
number of units, because I was gonna ask that question, I'm gonna try to do that math.
Penrose is
I think it's 14 on,
14
on 107 Main Street, and there's 65 at the Cape
65.
Cod 5.
and the fellow's gonna do the
And
underground
there's something in,
mall, but
Bruce-
that's gonna be workforce housing.
40 something in Truro. I don't
and
know
there's a
what
Brewster,
Provincetown
there's one in
is.
Brewster that's just
Well,
proceeding.
But the 200, what's the chamber saying relative to the workforce needs,
Nothing, but if they did research, I'm sure they'd be
Yeah.
panicking.
Well, they should be helping us,
Yeah.
we should get the
And I
chamber.
think the private, obviously, the private market is taking, they're smart, very, very smart business owners who are creating, Mac Hay bought a motel in Provincetown. They're trying to develop real estate so that they have some,
Mhm.
but
Oh, Ocean Edge has done the same thing in Brewster.
yeah, absolutely. So. I
It's
mean,
like
if-
they used to do in the old days. They used
yeah,
to-
yeah.
Yeah, provide housing for their,
But we also used,
workers.
I mean, when I was in high school, we had the Irish immigrants. That was the
That's-
big
mhm.
thing. And honestly, well, we had them in 1900 too, but we had them again in. And they used to all rent houses. So they'd rent a big house in Dennisport and 15
Generate, yeah.
girls would move
Generation.
in. Yeah,
my daughter-in-law was one of them.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that worked. We don't have any places like that anymore.
That's
You
right.
know,
When I was 15, I lived in Thompson's Clam Bars.
Did you enjoy Thompson? That was a nice little restaurant there on the water.
I enjoyed it, but at 15, living
still
in
know
a
the
house full
song.
of college guys was educated.
we can do the jingle for Thompson's.
Mary, do you want an update in the residential tax exemption?
Oh, yeah, so on the residential residential tax exemption, it was presented to the select board on Monday, and I won't go through it all, but it was essentially there where they're missing art, so it was a vote of 2-2, and it didn't pass. What didn't pass is the motion was to implement it, and it was voted 2 to implement and 2 to not implement. So it didn't pass. And we're at 55, 45.
55 part-time?
Yeah.
Non-eligible.
55, and
Uh,
really their original goal, not goal, but their original target was 60-40
Right,
60
for 2 years, for 2 years,
2 consecutive years.
consecutive years.
So we're not there yet.
We're not there yet, so it didn't pass. So, did you want to say something else about that?
What was that? Non-resident taxpayers take on that?
Oh, yeah, they were there.
On the RTE,
Yep.
well, obviously, the EPERDA is not, we don't see that RT really contributes, in any fair way to the housing issue. And at the same time, it's we look at it as an unfair shift of the potential burden. However, I think the dialogue is there. We expected it to kind of come out 2-2, to be very honest with you. It was a good dialogue. We tried to also, make it convenient for the select board by having one letter with the signatures.
Yeah,
and
but
I
400.
think that reduced
Good last
500.
minute decision.
And, so, I think, the opportunity to be heard is important, and we'd like to see it continue that way. And I think, given the current constitution of the board, I think it would stay that way. Although there's a couple that we're concerned with that would like to see it implemented below the 60% level, which is not something we certainly would be
In favor of.
in favor of seeing. If you look at the numbers that Colleen presented, it really makes a difference when you get up to the numbers that Truro and P-Town have.
Right.
I just don't even see it 60%. It makes sense implementing in the town.
Were they up like 70% or?
Oh, yeah, even higher. I think P-Town's around 80%. I think they're pushing 80% part-timers, and I know that Joanne, you've looked at it in detail as part of the Board of Assessors as well, so it's a good dialogue.
Yep, good.
And just so you know, I mean, working very closely with them, the fear is we're trying to prevent that.
Mm.
We don't want to hit 60. We don't want to hit 65. We don't want to hit
It's
70.
70.
It's not because we discriminate against part-time residents. It's because we know that a robust community
Is one that
cannot,
with
cannot
full-time.
happen when you have 75%
And
of people who
part-time.
do not live there
That's right.
year round.
That's right.
And we need the plumbers, the electricians, and you guys do too. I mean, if.
We
your
want
house-
to see a vibrant, absolutely. You know,
So I
that's,
think it behooves us to try and really work together to keep that number in the stable category that it's been for 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, we went over 60 like once and then I think.
But this is up a little bit from last year.
Not really.
we're about the
The year
same
before
last year.
40, 50, I thought it was 45
You know, I think.
At some
for
point.
The bottom line from the Curtis point of view. is
versus
it hasn't,
55.
the RTE has not demonstrated it's a long-term solution. Okay, in other towns to the housing problem. So therefore, other things that the town is looking at that, you know, Rich and Jackie and Colleen have talked about, those are the things where we ought to be putting our resources to help the people. RTE isn't targeted, anybody can get it.
It's.
You know what I mean? We need targeted
Well,
aid to people to.
And Rich, one thing I thought of too, in the time lag, that's why we discuss it in January, because you need time to implement something. If it was gonna get implemented and it was voted on in August, you would need a staff person. The tax rate would rise as a result across the board in the residential category. But the staff person and the money it would cost to implement at one time, well, and an employee, you'd have to approve an increase in the budget for an employee. It wouldn't be till the next town meeting, so it really going to take longer to implement. But the select board members
The
who
purpose of them telling us now, Joanne, is so if we needed to, we could have put that staff in FY.
into before this town meeting and vote on it.
Have a vote, have it
Right.
voted on,
That-
have it
right.
voted on this May.
Yeah.
Right.
No, August, right?
Yeah,
In
because
August.
we do not want them to,
Okay,
to have
so
this
it'd
discussion
be
in August.
ready for the public hearing, but I see,
Exactly.
because I was thinking it's really gonna
Our
take
town meeting
longer.
is May 6th.
Yeah,
Vote
and
on
the other thing about those numbers is as Rich and Colleen both know, you can't match who are those people to any of those numbers. Even the chunk of the multi-million, you could do that most easily, find out how many of those 39 ones over 2 million are residents versus non-residents. What you wouldn't find until you actually had had implemented is find out how many of people who are residents in town, but their home is owned in a trust, and they're not the beneficiary. Their children are because they want to pass it on. They're not eligible for a tax exemption. Somebody owns a couple of properties, you can't get it on more than one. There's so many moving
Very
targets
pieces.
that
Hmm.
it may get implemented one day and then you find out, but that's why it's just so important to know why are you
Consequences.
what do you want this to accomplish? And affordable housing, it's not.
Right.
But giving someone who does own a house here and is struggling,
break.
there is, and I liked Suzanne's point.
And that's what
not
Suzanne
having
and
to,
Jamie are.
not having to say, I need it because I have to put all the paperwork in for a income level.
Prove my.
So it's across the board, not targeted,
Mhm.
but there's so many unknowns that
Just
you're gonna implement it and say, oops, and I don't know that.
I think you should make it.
But
very
make it-
easy for people, but there has to be some litmus test, otherwise you worry about a program getting abused. You know what I mean by, if I don't have to show anything, then everybody will get it, I
Well, the
hate to say that
key
people would do
is-
that.
is-
It's yet, usually we
Yeah.
get a very nasty article from the Provincetown Independent. Every time they try and do the right thing, they get beaten up because they're not supporting residents, right? So I'm expecting that to come out soon. But the Independent's perspective is that a lot of our Massachusetts second homeowners take the exemption in their first place of residence. So that there are, if you have a house in Boston or whatever, you can get the exemption on your primary property there. So.
Well, one of the
Right.
challenges with RTU was originally implemented for towns like Cambridge and Boston,
Mm-hmm.
where you had absentee landlords.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People that didn't spend any time. And then they tried to apply the same thing in these kinds of instances and did not get the results that they expected.
Yeah.
So that's really the challenge when you look at that.
And I noticed Provincetown did just increase, they implemented the RTE, but they
35,
jumped it up to the
35.
maximum you could exempt up to
35%.
35%. Their Board of Assessors did not support that. I mean, it was, you know, so I'm just wondering what they were looking at, and the Board of Assessors, you know, it looks at things and with the assessor, they look at all these moving things and try to figure out, is this going to help our issue? And their to Provincetown, at least according to the independents, said their Board of Assessors said, do not do this. And they did it anyway. So is it really helping?
Well,
What were we helping what in P-Town? I don't know.
Did,
they did it
sure
without
somebody
dialogue
probably-
too.
I'm sure somebody,
They did it without dialogue in Provincetown. They didn't allow anyone to speak. I'm just happy that the part-time residents organization in this town has a totally different relationship
yeah.
with the
Well, and I
administration
think-
and the select board than they have in other towns.
Jamie's point of we represent the people who, you know, voted for us, and I understand that, but many of our part-time residents are soon-to-be residents. So, and our part-time residents support so much of what this town does that
There's a
the
fiduciary
select board really
responsibility.
does
I'm gonna be a
represent,
supporter in a couple.
Anyway.
of ways.
Yeah.
does support
As soon as
the
they move here,
non-residents
they're
too.
gonna love the residential tax.
That's
I'm
right.
with you.
But the more that live here, the less of a benefit they're gonna get there, and they're not gonna
All right,
notice
all
it.
right.
That's the,
You didn't want to demote this. one
that's
time.
the.
Jackie's got a town manager's
Honestly, though,
report.
going back
Okay, I
Six
think,
thirty.
I think we all realize that there are some needs that
it'll
we've
keep
got
coming
to,
up.
we've got to continually discuss ways to support people
Mhm.
that live here
Yeah.
on a full-time basis.
And we should be thanking the select board for not being politicians and
Yeah.
for really thinking about what's the right thing to do.
Mhm.
Because it would be so easy for them to just say, let's do the residential tax exemption. 70% of the people that vote for us will love us.
Mhm.
See what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So they don't get enough. They just get bashed for it constantly.
Mhm.
Nobody says, oh my God, thank you. You do a really clear process every
Yeah.
year. You allow us to speak. You're reasonable people who look at the facts
Yeah, yeah.
and,
And
know,
you're
respond
you're
to-
transparent.
and
Well-
I need them to get that credit because I think they deserve it.
Mhm.
But it's so different to me than other boards who do these things. You know, they really handle it well despite their, polarization. I think that really represents the community pretty well
Yeah.
too, right?
Half
You
and
know, the
half.
5 of them.
Yeah, and you can't address it in a letter to the editor because it just,
Yeah.
No, yeah.
it's
Okay,
complicated.
Sorry,
so,
but I just
so,
wanted to-
Yeah.
did you have anything to add to the town manager report?
No,
No, no.
everything's fine.
No, the only thing is the the
Write
work
that
being
down.
done on the town hall is,
It's fine.
yeah.
Right.
No,
That's
there
fine.
were some issues, I thought,
We have issues.
on the work being done on the town hall, that they found some,
No, it's no different.
They're found, it's an old building and they're gonna find stuff and we haven't had a meeting yet to
okay,
um.
to go over it.
What the solutions of those. But they're moving at a great pace and I hope they are going to replace trim and fascia boards because as they're ripping them off, I worry about the weather.
This weather. Okay, our next meeting is next Wednesday, February 7th at 4 o'clock. And I just want you to be aware that originally, we were doing one thing and now we're doing another thing. We're doing the police and dispatch next week, not the, community development and fire department. And we're switching, the community development and fire department is going to be on February 14th. So next week, it's the police and the dispatch. And the following week is the fire, community development and fire. And then the next week is DPW and water. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Joanna, second. Tom, all in favor? Aye.
All right.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Paul. 1, 2.
Hmm.